Good evening and welcome to the City of Helena City Commission meeting, December 18th, 2023. The time is 6 p.m. This meeting is called to order. Madam Clerk.
City Attorney Doctor.
Here.
City Manager Burton.
Here.
Commissioner Dean.
Here.
Commissioner Logan.
Here.
Commissioner Reed.
Here.
Commissioner Shirtliff.
Here.
Mayor Collins.
Here. Welcome and thank you for participating in the City of Helena City Commission meeting. We are pleased to be able to provide this alternative meeting format in the city's effort to broaden public participation. Please be patient as we may experience technical difficulties during the meeting. We welcome your public comments. Please read the following tips and guidelines for the app usage. Would you rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States.
Our City Commission minutes were received on 12/4/23. Do we have any comments or additions? If not, the minutes will stand as submitted. Consent agenda. Claims. Director Danielson, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners.
Good evening.
Tonight before you, we have claims. I get to my sheet of paper here. So claims were paid from October 30th, 2023 through November 22nd, 2023. Checks numbered 196885 through 197335 and EFTs numbered 114 through 120. For a grand total of $2,590,611.06. Our recommendation is for you to move to approve claims as they are stated. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments or questions? I'll entertain a motion. I mean, we'll do them separate because I see that some of them are, we'll do separate.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve consent agenda item A claims.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion? Do we have had any public comments on this topic? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Dean.
Aye.
Commissioner Logan.
Aye.
Commissioner Reed.
Aye.
Commissioner Shirtliff.
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
B, accept additional angle parking on the north side of Vandalay Avenue, just west of Oak Street. Director Kanopke, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners.
Good evening.
This is just basically some housekeeping. Back in March, the commission approved angle parking along Vandalay between Sanders and Oaks. This is the last or one of the last lots to be sold. It's the northeast corner there. And they're requesting the angle parking just like is in front of Opportunity Bank and Benefice and the other lot. So what we did is, since that resolution was already passed and it allowed for angle parking between Sanders and Oaks along Vandalay, in reference to an exhibit, we updated the exhibit for your consideration. It is our recommendation approval of this angle parking request. It fits with the current nature of the area.
Thank you. Comments or questions from the? Nothing. I'll entertain the motion. Excuse me, do we have any public comments on this topic?
seen, if you've driven there during the day, the conflicts that have arisen on Sanders and Vandelay due to the narrow nature of that street, the variance that was granted there. So I think it's just worth considering that we watch that area so it doesn't turn into a big parking lot itself with fender benders and there's no function for business there if it's all blocked up all the time. If you've ever tried to drive there on Sanders, turn in on either 11th or Prospect, and there's a big truck, good luck getting in. And you do see that there is already a lot of rubber marks from those big trucks and other vehicles trying to maneuver in and out of there. So it is just something to watch, and those businesses, let them know what they're getting into and that this may need to be fixed later if that continues, as it will harm their business if they can't get people in and out.
Sir, I apologize. Your mic wasn't on. Could you state your name for the record?
Nathan Costed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments on this topic? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I move to approve the inclusion of angled parking on the north side of the east end of Vandelay Avenue as part of the attachment A, Resolution 20723, which permits angled parking along Vandelay Avenue between Sanders Street and Oak Street.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion from the commission? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Dean.
Aye.
Commissioner Logan.
Aye.
Commissioner Reed.
Aye.
Commissioner Shertliff.
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Commissioners, any proposals from you? Okay, we'll move along. Report of the city attorney.
Mayor, Commissioners, I have nothing to report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Report of the city manager.
Mayor Collins, Commissioners, I have nothing to report this evening.
Thank you. Communications from Helena Citizens Council. Representative Andrew, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor Collins and
Good
city
evening.
commissioners. I just wanted to extend a thank you for all the hard work you did in 2023, and also thank you for inviting HCC to a facilitated discussion led by the MSU Local Government Center last Friday for your strategic planning report. I think we'll have taken quite a bit away from that, and look forward to moving forward with our own strategic planning for 2024. I also wanted to mention that HCC going into 2024 has 25 members with 3 vacancies and are looking forward to the swearing in ceremony to officially start the next year, and would like to extend an invitation to the commissioners and the city manager to attend if that's possible. And for wrapping up the year, also thank the city manager and city staff for all they do for helping us moving with our business.
Thank you. Regular items. Reconsideration of the request for the enlargement of sanitary sewer service boundary for property located at 2167 Head Lane, legally described as Lot 5 of the County Club Park subdivision, Lewis and Clark County. Director Leland, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Commission. And I will pull the presentation up just in a second. All right, we're here again for the Head Lane request to enlarge the wastewater service area for the city of Helena. For the background, see if I can get the mouse working. Over here, we have the VA and the fort that used to have lagoons that you can see located right here. And in 1997, they started to fail, and the fort and the federal government took on a study to decide if they want to fix the lagoons or how they are going to provide wastewater service to the VA and the fort. And what came out of it was to connect to the city of Helena. With that, they had several alternatives of routes to be able to get to the city of Helena. And what came up was to go down Head Lane, all the way across down to Horseshoe Bend, and then it would be pumped from a lift station constructed by the federal government up into the customer main, and then gravity fed into the city services. With that, they have gone adjacent to several properties that are out there that have come into the city of Helena and requested to be connected to this wastewater line. We currently have 6 that are connected. This is Oddfellows, or was Red Meadow, was the first one that was able to come in. And then subsequently, we've had several others. The most recent, Alfalfa Road, we're able to connect with that. With this, the request is to do a single family home in the location here at 2167 Head Lane. With that, they will have to sign a development agreement that they will have to pay their pro rata share of the extension of any services to the city when and if the city is wanting to annex. So it will be at the call and at the pleasure of the city of Helena if we annex this, and then they will have to pay for their pro rata share of water, streets, all the improvements that is required for a city of Helena. There is capacity in the lift station. They will have to pay a 42-cent per gallon cost. So it will come up to just under $300 that they will have to pay because there is a latecomers fee or a rebate associated with the new lift station. With that, our recommendation is that it is approved because we do get jurisdiction of that lot. And we also have capacity in the sewer main that is out there. So we are not perpetuating any more wells and septics for single family homes. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you, Director Leland. Comments or questions from the commission? Go ahead, Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Director Leland. So this is a reconsideration. So from the first time we heard this to now, what new information has come in, or what is different than the first time we heard this?
Mayor, Commissioner Reed, I think the one is to have a better explanation, which I take on myself, and that the applicant is going to be able to tell their end of things, and that it is that we get jurisdiction in this area. So any future development, if they're going to come in and want to add any housing, any new development or anything along those lines, then the city will have control over that with the development agreement. If they want to continue to have wastewater service in that area, and that we already have had 6 other properties on this line itself.
Go ahead,
Mr.
Commissioner.
Mayor, thank you. Director Leland, thanks for being here tonight. With regards to going into one of these stub-ins, what would be so difficult about doing a septic system?
Mayor, Commissioner, in this location, the groundwater is so high that they may, in several of these locations, they were unable to do any on-site treatment because how high the groundwater was, or that you would have to go to a very expensive treatment, that you would have to do an elevated sand mound or something along those lines, like a package plant that would be very costly to be able to do anything. So that is the main reason most of these lots have come in and requested the city, is because of how high the groundwater is.
Commissioner Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director, you answered this during the last hearing, but just for the public record, is this in the urban standards boundary?
Mayor, Commissioner, it is not in the current one right now.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Director Leland. At this time, we'll ask for any public comments on this topic.
Mr. Mayor, good evening.
Good
Commissioners,
evening.
I'm John Ramirez. My wife and I are owners of the property at 2245 Head Lane since 1996. We're part of the discussions starting in 1998 through 1999. eventually part of the discussion that led to the siting and sizing of the line exactly where it is, which anticipated growth in the West Valley way before the military affected area, way before the urban growth, and the rural growth areas were defined in 2017, subsequent to the siting of this line. So this is a continuation of that same discussion, which this body agreed to support in May of 2002. They approved the extension of city services to Fort Harrison formally and opened the door, but did not guarantee approval, but opened the door for applicants to come forward and request access to the line. So this is a continuation of that discussion. Again, as mentioned, the groundwater is high. The overall goal environmentally is to keep extra or additional septic systems out of that aquifer. And so the line supports that. In addition, there was Montana law that required that any property seeking to build within 500 feet of an existing infrastructure had to first request access to that infrastructure and be denied before they could go forward with a separate request. From 1999 to 2002, I worked with the city planning office under Hal Fossum, a little bit with city manager Burton at the time, Mayor Smith as well, to try to get informed about what the process would be to help support a yes for this application request. And so this is a continuation, again, as I said, of that same discussion. But I stand for questions.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments on this topic?
Mayor and Commissioners, Andre Saladay. I was not here to comment on this topic tonight, but saw it on the agenda, and I just want to say thank you in advance for voting no on this one. Thank you to the three of you who voted no already on this one. But I think I would just reiterate a couple of points. Property outside of the city doesn't pay general fund taxes, right? And we have a whole discussion tonight about scarce resources inside the city of Helena. So don't subsidize properties that aren't going to spend money inside the city of Helena. That's parks, that's police, right? That's our roads, our school district, right? We know 2 schools are probably going the way of the earth in the city in the next couple of years. That's a symptom, not completely, but in part based on bad growth patterns, right? This commission has a choice on whether it wants to encourage growth outside of city boundaries or tell it not to happen. Emergency services. Y'all are discussing whether you're going to put out a levy to many of the people sitting in this room to charge them more money for fire and police in the near future. You know, it doesn't pay into fire and police or into that levy. Development outside of city limits. You know, asks for those services when they come into town to eat, work, play, or when we have to respond to a mutual aid agreement. Right, there's been a lot of discussion recently about who's responsible for higher tax bills recently that we've all seen as property owners, renters. Y'all are, if you keep subsidizing development outside of city limits. So thank you in advance as a member of this city, as someone who supports people being able to stay in their homes and pay their tax bills, someone who supports our city schools, someone who supports our law enforcement and fire department.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments on this topic?
Mayor Collins and City Commission. My name's Kathy Ramirez. And I just wanted to also add that when this line was put in, it was actually sized for over 1,100 homes being added into it. So the capacity is there. And I do understand that it's outside of city limits, but the people anyone that you give permission to tie in has to waive their right to protest in the future. So that means that they would support any fees that come from the city. You do have to pay for that line if you tie in. So you would have revenue coming from that property as well. So I encourage you to support it. And it does protect the groundwater out in that area more by tying in with a built system than a separate septic. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you have any other public comments on this topic? I'll entertain a motion.
Can I make a comment first, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am, just want to give my reasoning briefly. I'm respectfully going to, oppose a motion to approve tonight. As I noted in the same motion for another property on Alfalfa, do have great sympathy for the property owners, given the history in the 90s and early 2000s. I think if these properties fell within the urban standards boundary and the property owners were petitioning for annexation, the expansion of city services would be consistent with the city adopted growth policy. But that is not the case here. The property does not fall within the urban standards boundary. If the community and planners find that it's warranted and an appropriate area for development in the future, when we do update the next growth policy and that the urban standards boundary should be expanded into this area, I think that would be an opening to follow the city practice of requiring annexation to access city services for this property. Again, I have sympathy for the property owners, but respectfully will oppose this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will not repeat the points made by Commissioner Dean, but I will also be a no for the same reasons. I believe it is outside of the boundaries, and at this time, I will not be supporting it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to make a motion and ultimately we'll support that. I think part of the reason we're here tonight is in having Fort Harrison had a pretty significant problem back in the late 90s, and that was the loss or the failure of their lagoon system. And the fort being out of the city limits or any urban standards boundaries that would have existed at the time if they did, the city worked with the federal government and made a connection that was made possible through the permission of many, if not all of these landowners that have approached us. And it was a good move in the long view. If you look at the potential environmental impacts, if we had not connected to the Fort Harrison complex, that's a little disconcerting.
Go ahead.
So it's been a benefit to the environment in this area. The ability for properties to hook into this is beneficial to the environment in the area in terms of developing those properties. And the landowners have had significant investment in that. And it gives us the ability to one day annex the area, and they have certainly waived any ability to protest should we choose to annex. And so when commission comments complete, I'd be happy to make a motion and I will be supporting it.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I appreciate the property owners for coming here tonight. I appreciate the public comment. Helena is growing, and as Commissioner Dean mentioned, the urban growth boundary or the urban standards had the developers petition for annexation. This would be a different conversation. But also too, I'm torn with protecting our water sources. It's vital, especially for our growth. It's something that we want to protect. But also too, there's been planning put in place, as Commissioner Logan mentioned, for these stub-ins or these have gone all the way from city limits all the way out to Fort Harrison in preparation for growth. I'm I've wrestled with this all day. But it's an important conversation to have, and I think we're going to have more of these conversations in the future, especially in this area. Thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I would move to approve the enlargement of the existing sanitary sewer service boundary to include the Ramirez property located at 2167 Head Lane and enter into a development agreement with the City of Helena with the following conditions. 1, waiver of the right to protest annexation into the City of Helena. 2, waiver of the right to protest future special improvement districts for water, streets, and sidewalk. 3, obtain all applicable city permits and pay all applicable fees. 4, accept city metering on the sanitary sewer service for billing and the associated costs. 5, purchase sewer capacity for the proposed residents in the Stone Meadows pump station at 42 cents per GPD for 268 GPD at the cost of $112.56. 6, restrict the use for one single family residence only. 7, participate in the construction and extension of the city water system at such time as the water system would benefit owner's property.
There's a second.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Dean,
No.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner Reed,
Nay.
Commissioner Shertliff,
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 3-2.
Consider City of Helena engineering standards travel lane with amendments. Transportation Director Kanopke.
Good evening again, Mayor and Commissioners. This lane amendment has had some long and very fruitful discussions through admin meetings and other. So the proposal tonight is to revise the 9-foot lanes that are currently on for local roads and increase them to a 10-foot lane. This is to bring our engineering standards into agreement with the International Fire Code, which requires a 20-foot unobstructed width for the emergency travel lane. There's several studies out there that have been mentioned in prior meetings. A lot of them discuss the narrower streets, but all pretty much fall down to that 10-foot is okay. It's where you start going up to 11 and 12-foot lanes is where it starts to become problematic and safety issues for pedestrian and bicyclists. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any further questions on this topic and recommend the proposed change of increasing the travel lane from 9 to 10 foot.
Thank you, Director Kanopke. Comments from the commission? Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Director Kanopke. Just for the record, it's in the packet, but if I'm understanding correctly, the change from a 9-foot to a 10-foot travel lane does not change the overall 60-foot width of the road based on the drawings. Is that accurate?
Mayor and Commissioners, yes. I'm sorry I didn't bring that up. If this is approved tonight, we will come back to you with a city code change, which eliminates the 1-foot offset from the property line to the sidewalk. That'll decrease, that'll take up the extra foot, so the right-of-way width will not be impacted.
Mr. Mayor, a follow-up if I might.
Please.
So changing the 1-foot offset when a road is being designed or built, how does that impact a developer or someone building that road? Where does that 1-foot fall? Whose responsibility?
The 1-foot is, or Mayor and Commissioners, the 1-foot is within the right-of-way, but typically that gets kind of absorbed, whether it's fencing or landscaping. So the adjacent property owner typically takes care of that. In some instances not. In some instances that 1-foot strip, he kind of is a kind of a no man's land because it's back a sidewalk and fence if it's built So in this case, it would eliminate that. The back sidewalk would be right up against your, the property line, so the fence would be right on the property line.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dr. Konopki, I wonder if you can talk a little bit about some of the difficulty that arises when someone is putting together development and we have conflict between the engineering standards and the fire code, and how staff has been working through that.
Yes, Mayor and Commissioners. So currently, as I stated, the travel lanes are 9 foot. So we may comment that they meet the engineering standards, but they do not meet the International Fire Code. And so the fire marshal, the fire department will comment that the streets need to be. So then there's a discussion on that. In the past, it's been a lot of discussions. It impacts the length of time it takes to review, because we have to sit down and walk through these. I think in the future, we can sit down and work with developers and work with our standards so that we can look at a matrix that still includes the 20-foot unobstructed width, but depending upon how the adjacent development is occurring, may lend to lesser asphalt. If, for instance, the adjacent property owners or developers are putting in 2-car garages and 2-car driveways, that's 4 parking spaces per unit. The parking per the standard could be removed and lessen the width of the asphalt, but still maintain the 20-foot. And I did fail to mention, Mayor and Commissioners, that the fire chief is here with us. If you have any questions specifically for the fire chief, I apologize for that.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd take you up on that question for the fire chief.
But before we go to the fire code director, why now?
Mayor and Commissioner, why now make the change?
Yes.
We've been battling this for a number of years, and we've talked about it, and it's we're bringing it because we feel that it's a necessary change so that our codes are in alignment and we're providing the adequate space for emergency vehicles. So it seems it's been the right time to bring it forward to the commission for consideration.
Because I've also read some of those studies, and they are the difference, the change is insignificant just in some of the studies that were presented to us. So I'm concerned. Why? Because the city is not going to be incurring the costs, would they?
Mayor and Commissioners, no, the developers and the adjacent property owners would be incurring that increased cost. It may seem insignificant to folks from the outside, but it does play a large role in the operations for the fire department when they're out there. It also plays a large role when we're maintaining the streets in the wintertime for our plows. Our plows, depending on the angle, as they go down the road, can exceed that 9 and even that 10-foot width. So if we, encounter another vehicle, we have to either find a parking spot to pull off into, or, hopefully we can squeeze by. So it's not just a way to say we want, 32 feet of asphalt. It's to facilitate operations for not only the streets maintenance, but also the fire department.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commission? Chief Campbell?
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question for Chief Campbell. So I missed the last regular meeting where this issue came before us. And it seemed to me like, I think it was tabled at that time. And in any case, it was deferred to tonight, essentially. We've had a bit of discussion at administrative meetings about this. And I can't remember whether it was in my review of that regular meeting that I missed or a subsequent administrative meeting. But I remember a comment being made that the fire code as it relates to the 20-foot width was somewhat arbitrary. I don't think it is. And I guess I'd be interested in us hearing the chief's opinion on the importance of this particular code as it relates to the fire department and fire service. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Logan, thank you. In your packets is a summation of some of the safety elements that are fire department specific from the fire code. And I can speak briefly to a summary of that and answer any additional questions you have. The 20-foot unencumbered or 20-foot road width that is essentially in the center of the right of way is what we consider critical for emergency service operations. And that's all emergency services, including ambulance, law enforcement, and fire. So the fire code emergency access isn't just for fire department use. It's so we can address public safety needs across the community. One of the rationale for that 20-foot width is so emergency vehicles have the capacity to pass one another during an emergency incident to gain the appropriate access. And a secondary benefit of that is civilian populations have the ability to leave an emergency area, which I feel is particularly important given the wildland urban interface issues that surround some of the Helena area. When an engine is connected to a fire hydrant, it's very critical that the pipe and the hose that come off of that hydrant don't have kinks in it. An individual kink in a hose can reduce the fire flow or the flow of water by 50%. And this helps address the deployment of fire hose for fire ground operations. Additionally, when we're utilizing an aerial apparatus, there are outriggers in the base of that truck that have to go out to stabilize it. So when the aerial platform is elevated, the truck doesn't tip over. And when those outriggers are fully deployed for the safe operation of that truck, they measure at 19.5 feet. So we're threading the needle at a 20-foot unencumbered travel lane to make sure we have the ability to effectively utilize our apparatus. And I can address any additional questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Any comments from the commission for Chief Campbell?
I just have a comment, not for Chief Campbell, but generally. So I really appreciate the chief's comments and the Director Knopke's comments. We received a lot of public comment regarding this topic over the last few months when it's been in administrative meetings and I think one regular meeting and then got kicked back. So really appreciate everything that we've heard from the public on this topic. I spent quite a bit of time diving into the research on this because I'm not an engineer and I'm not a firefighter. And so wanted to be sure that I was making an informed decision about what was before us today. One of the biggest complaints that we hear as a commission, and I think city staff and our departments hear it pretty consistently, is that there is inconsistency between city departments frequently when folks are trying to pursue new developments. It's something that we've really prioritized this past year in bringing all of our departments together to ensure that the public's interface is more seamless and there's consistency across our departments. I think this is one of the areas that we've identified as continuously a sticking point and understandably frustrating to the public when the fire marshal is telling you one thing and transportation systems and community development is telling you another. So bringing these things into alignment, I think, is critical, not just for public safety, but also for ease of using the systems that the city provides. So one of the interesting things that came up during our last administrative meeting was actually, well, there's a number of studies on this, but one of the most recent was done by Johns Hopkins. And it was noted by Commissioner Reed, actually. There was an NPR article about it. In that study, the authors found that the number of vehicle crashes do not significantly change in streets with lane widths of 9 feet compared to those lane widths of 10 feet. There are significant increases in crashes, approximately 1.5 times higher when the lane width increases to 12 feet. It's also interesting in that study, it goes on to talk about how in communities where there's a lot of snow, 10 feet is actually more appropriate given that we have to deal with snow removal. So given that, I feel confident that we can make this decision in bringing the fire code and the engineering standards into alignment without causing any additional issues. I think it's hard to find when you're asked to balance fire safety and street safety. But I think with this reasonable update, we can do both. So I really appreciate the city staff for doing all of the hard research that this took and the public comment that we've received up to this point. And looking forward to moving on with this item.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments on this topic? Is it on? Is your microphone on?
Thank you, sir. Shall I repeat myself, Mr. Mayor? The study you referenced, Commissioner Dean, the authors say they do not apply to unstriped roads. There are important concerns. They have some overlap with unstriped roads, but what we're talking about tonight is unstriped roads, and that's it. Then the authors would tell you no. And this gets to a bigger problem. I don't think there's an argument that the fire department needs 20 feet clear. The argument is, how do you interpret what it takes to get that 20 feet clear? And this is some years ago, Commissioner Logan, but when I was in this business back then, I was told there is no proof that interpreting the standards, the way the city staff is interpreting it, gets you a measurable difference. And I'll explain that a little more here. But so my concern is the timer's all over the place, Your Honor.
Is it on?
Mr. Mayor, it is on. I do believe Mr. Cartwright should get a few extra seconds
Okay.
since his mic wasn't on.
Go ahead.
Okay, my concern is roads and residential neighborhoods, and this will be less than 2 minutes, Your Honor. You're being asked to widen all local roads as a kind of fire insurance. Tonight's proposal assumes every road will be overloaded with parked cars whenever a fire truck shows up, and that assumption has a cost. So there are some questions I want you to consider when you are thinking about this fire insurance. At the current rate of fires, which are about 10 per year, many, maybe most of the new blocks that will not see a fire in the next 100 years. So what's the probability that when a fire happens, it will be on a block lined with parked vehicles infringing on the 20-foot minimum clear space? Injuries on local roads in Helena are averaging something under 2 per week, That is, local roads alone see far more injuries than all the fire injuries in the city. Wider roads increase speeds. What is the trade-off between fire injuries and traffic injuries? The extra 2 feet of pavement adds several thousands of dollars to the cost of the house, maybe closer to 10,000 if you add in land costs. Are the buyers getting value for money? No matter how you rejigger the right-of-way, the extra 2 feet of road is an extra 2 feet of impervious surface. Will those extra 2 feet make a difference in a extreme rain event? Will homeowners have to pay extra to get the missing 2 feet of grass? So my conclusion, which may be a surprise, is yes, sometimes the 2 feet are necessary, and sometimes they are not if you're wanting to get that, ensure that 20 feet clear. Depends on the situation. So the proposal before you has pretend lanes that don't reflect how drivers actually use unstriped streets. There is no stripes out there.
You need to wrap up now.
Okay, I think you should adopt a standard with a variable width of pavement and then trust city staff to make the judgment of what applies in which situation. This is what other Montana towns do. I think this would be a better way to do fire insurance. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments on this topic?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Jacob Kuntz, 941 Hollins Avenue. Speaking out in requesting you vote against this. The images used to describe street widths oftentimes have car parked outside of the curb pan, which it's not reflected in the reality of how people park their cars. Although this morning I saw a car on Last Chance Gulch parked 4 feet away from the curb. So there's these variables that are put into the images that I've seen to describe the need for expanding the street to have 2 fire trucks pass one another, that don't meet up in the reality of actually how people park their cars. And I've seen actually the streets actually having that type of clearance when you include the curb pan involved in this. At a time when we're trying to build better neighborhoods, it's not about the width of the street, and it's more about how those streets are designed and work together. And so I'd encourage the commission to think about the totality of how these things are impacted and how other communities in Montana are working on issues regarding streets, public works, snow removal, and the passage of fire trucks to ensure safety, and examine that in how this is impacting this actual decision. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments on this topic? Okay,
Mr. Mayor, I have one more question if possible.
please.
I believe it's for Director Knopke. So my reading is that tonight it would just be approving the travel lane width, but you said there would be a subsequent discussion about how the right of way is allocated. Is that accurate?
Mayor and Commissioners, yes, if you agree with the proposal to increase the width of the travel lanes, then to not incur additional right of way because of that extra foot, we would bring back code 742A1 that requires that 1 foot offset from the property line, to revise that to be the property line is the interface between the back of sidewalk and the property.
So that, if I'm understanding correctly, would be an opportunity to consider some other options for how we use that 60 feet within that right of way. That decision is not final as of tonight with the change in the travel lane width. Is that correct?
Mayor and Commissioner, no. And the commission has the ability to consider whatever they would wish to happen in that 60 foot, but this proposal would ensure that the travel lanes are 10 foot.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Director Knopke, we've heard you mentioned this earlier about the cost would be incurred by the developer and the property owners. Is there a potential for a variability when it comes to the travel lane or the width of the road? I understand that we've got the outriggers for the new fire truck. I don't believe that that'd be used in, say, a residential area, 100-foot ladder. But is there a possibility to have that variability when it comes to the width of the road itself?
Mayor and Commissioners, as far as the width of the entire road, yes.
Depending on residential or commercial or downtown.
And to the unstriped versus striped, yes, we don't stripe every road, but we set aside X amount of feet, in this case, 20 feet for the travel lane that's supposed to be unobstructed. But to your other question about working with potential developers of adjacent property, yes, we could, as in my example of, a larger frontage house that has a 2-car garage and a 2-car driveway, making it really you don't need the parking lane. So in that case, you could, instead of the 32 feet of asphalt, in that case, you could potentially have 26. We would, with the travel lane width of 20 feet, we would ensure that we have that as basically a minimum. Anything outside of that, we could address through design meetings with developers and see how we can come out with that.
Yeah, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I would approve an amendment to the city engineering standards in table 5-3, page 80. Complete street checklist, page 102, and standard drawing 5-1, page 142, to amend the local roadway travel lane width from 9 feet to 10 feet. And if this motion would get a second, I'd like to make a comment if I could.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion?
Mr. Mayor, just a brief comment, very supportive of the alignment of the fire code with the engineering standards. It makes sense. And speaking as someone who has driven both types of apparatus on an emergency response, the code matters. And so I'll be supporting this this motion.
Any other final comments?
Mr. Mayor, I will be supporting this motion for the travel lane width. I do look forward to a conversation about the use of the right of way and flexibility and options going forward, but I do support this travel lane motion tonight.
Any others? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Dean,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner Reed,
Aye.
Commissioner Shertliff,
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Consider a curb and gutter and sidewalk deferral request for 512 South Riley Street. Director Kenocky?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. This is for the request for deferral of sidewalks and curb and gutter for 512 South Raleigh Street. The applicant has requested for the installation of sidewalks and curb and gutter at this residence. Both streets that abut this property are undeveloped at this time. Let's see, and they're in lieu of installation, they are willing to waive their right to protest for any future SID for any roadway improvements. Because of the unimproved nature of both roadways, staff does recognize that installing curb and gutter at this time could result in the removal or replacement in the future once the street network gets improved in that location. But the sidewalk portion, we're recommending that the sidewalks be installed. It's been seen over a number of projects over years that when the sidewalks are deferred or given a variance, that landscaping, trees, and other things of that nature encroach where those sidewalks could or should have been. And then when that infrastructure is planned, then there's a lot of discussion of where and how the sidewalks interact with that property. So in this case, we're recommending that the sidewalks be installed so that it kind of gives us a placeholder for that area between the sidewalk and the curb. But do recommend approval of a waiver of a right to protest, an SID to be signed in lieu of the installation of the curb and gutter along both of the right of ways. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director Kenocky. Comments or questions from the commission? Do we have any public comments on this topic?
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Ann Gilbert. I'm the property owner there on the corner of First and Raleigh. The roads are undeveloped. Raleigh has a significant slant to it that makes putting a sidewalk there difficult, and it also dead ends right there. It doesn't even connect with First at this point. There's a big drop off as far as ADA corners. It makes it very difficult and unsafe to place that. The First Street is also undeveloped, hasn't been used for anything other than the recent construction there to that property. Putting sidewalks there before the streets are established doesn't make sense to me or the builder working on it right now. I have no problem putting those in later. I'm totally supportive of sidewalks and ADA access to the trails, to everything that's up there, but it just doesn't make sense to me for right now. until the neighborhood is more developed. So thank you for considering my request to not do this at the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any?
My name is John Bowen Hollow. I live kitty corner from this property. I've lived up in this area for about 45 years. I appreciate the notion of consistency in a policy. However, when it's applied to an area that is used entirely different than another area, it may not make sense. Indeed, it doesn't. So for tenure this tablet, the people that live up here have driveways going off up here. If you put a sidewalk down here, then you have to lower the street. These people won't be able to get to their houses. So this whole area is going to need a plan that says people are going to move here and use this area. Right now, where I live, people walk in the street. They walk in the street because, not because there's no sidewalks, but because there's no traffic. It's dead end to the east. It's dead end to the south. And so you would not get any use out of a sidewalk. They would have to divert from being in a safe street with a dead end with a path down at the end. So if you're going south on Raleigh, you drop. So as Ann said, if you put a sidewalk on this side, you're going to have to put steps on it and nobody's going to use it. So appreciating that in the future, if somebody develops in this area, that you want sidewalks, right now putting one here is going to create a situation where the street for these people is got to be lowered, and that doesn't make sense. So I think the deferral is a good idea at this point. And thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any other public comments on this topic? Madam Clerk, do we have any online?
Mr. Mayor, I have no public comment online.
Okay. At this time, I will entertain a motion. Please.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Just looking at the recommended motion, the motion is to approve a variance, but to install sidewalks, and I'm slightly confused.
The motion would be moved if this is the motion that you're looking at, move to approve a variance allowing a waiver protest for any future SID to be signed in lieu of installation of curb and gutter along both right-of-way frontages of 512 South Raleigh Street.
However, sidewalks will be constructed as indicated. Is that not?
Yes, you can add on to the sidewalks would be installed, but this is only giving the waiver for the curb and gutter.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve a variance allowing a waiver of protest for any future SID to be signed in lieu of installation of curb and gutter along both right-of-way frontages of 512 South Raleigh Street.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion? Well, I was one of those that one time we passed a variance without really looking at the property. And I've had to walk by that property almost daily when I go on my walk. And that was a mistake because that was a sidewalk to nowhere. And this seems to be something similar. Thus, I'm not going to be supporting it. I believe we should defer the sidewalk until, because we hear the property owners talking about when it's time, they'll be able to put the sidewalk in. But at this moment, I was one of those that went to the site. Because whenever we have these variances, it's always good to have firsthand knowledge about it. Because if you don't see it, the pictures don't do justice. So with me, I'm going to support the deferral. Any other comments, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Dean,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner Reed,
Aye.
Commissioner Shertliff,
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
No.
The motion carries 4-1.
Public hearings. Consider a resolution amending the revised final budget authorities appropriation for fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2024 for the City of Helena, Montana by amending resolution number 20875 to increase appropriation by $2,782,000. Director Danielson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Tonight, we do have before you a resolution for you to consider to increase annual appropriations to our fiscal 2024 budget. At the time of the budget, things are, at a point in time, and through the fiscal year, things, happen. And this is a way of coming before the commission and modify based on adjusted circumstances. The City Clerk's Office is working jointly with the Lewis and Clark County on a digitization project because of the reallocation of City of Helena not participating in that program anymore. Both the Lewis and Clark County and the City of Helena need to pick up more of the cost for that project. And so this is to accommodate for that, a $7,000 increase to their appropriations for that. The Streets Fund is asking for $65,000 to fund for a dedicated staff member for the MPO operations. They anticipate that the federal highway planning allocation to reimburse the city for that staff person, so it'll be funded through that mechanism. They're also asking to use reserves for funding of an asset inventory system, and I believe the commission at their last admin meeting got a view of what that system has to offer. So it's a very robust system for them for their inventory management. The fire department is asking to use cash reserves to purchase a pre-built Type 3 wildland fire engine, and that's out of their fire capital funds. So using cash reserves for that is an appropriate purpose. And then finally, the water fund is asking for an additional, I think it's $2 million. I don't know if I have it on here, a little over $2 million. Yeah. To fund drill and test production wells at the Missouri River Treatment Plant and to connect them to the city's water system. If you have any further questions about these particular amendments, I know the directors are in the room and they can answer any more questions about the projects that they're asking to increase their appropriations. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Director Danielson. Comments or questions from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, not a question on the content of your presentation. There are a number of memos that follow this one describing each of the projects.
Yes.
We'll need one motion. Is that accurate?
That's
for this
correct.
post?
Yeah,
Okay.
those were just for support to expand on the explanation of the increased appropriations for each division.
Thanks.
I just wanted to give you more reading.
It was great.
Thank you. Any public comments on this topic? Any online, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, I have no public comment online.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I will move to approve a resolution amending the revised final budgets, budget authorities, and appropriations for fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023, and ending July 30th, 2024 for the City of Helena, Montana by amending resolution number 20785 to increase appropriations by $2,782,000.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Dean.
Aye.
Commissioner Logan.
Aye.
Commissioner Reed.
Aye.
Commissioner Shertliff.
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Consider a resolution granting a conditional use permit to allow an emergency shelter use in downtown zoning district with the recommended conditions. Planner Holland, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Tonight, I present to you a conditional use permit application for an emergency shelter at 648 Jackson Street. This is legally described as the northeasterly half of lots 14 and 19 and all of lots 15, 16, 17, and 18 in block 13 of the Chessman and Davis Central Addition to the City of Helena, Lewis and Clark County, Montana. In the northeasterly 62.5 feet of land formerly designated and used as a public alley running in a northeasterly and southwesterly direction across the northeasterly half of the lots 14 and 19 and all of lots 15, 16, 17, and 18 in block 13 of the Chessman and Davis Central Addition. This is generally located to the west of the intersection of 13th Jackson and Helena Avenues, and it's to the east of Last Chance Gulch there. It is a downtown zoned property with transitional residential to the east and residential R3 both to the north and south. It is currently used by simple cremation, land use of a funeral home, and since the construction of the building, it's been at various times a grocery store, a moose lodge, a printing company, and most recently before the funeral home, it was occupied by Rocky Mountain Development Council. This conditional use permit would operate between October 1st and May 1st, housing 26 women between the hours of 4 p.m. and 9 a.m. This portion of the building is to the east of where our place currently is and is a separate and distinct operation. Both are run by Good Samaritans, but they are two separate parts. This conditional use permit will not apply to the our place portion of the building, nor will it apply to the offices that are still in use by Rocky Mountain Development Council. Definitions in our code, we consider an emergency shelter temporary housing and services for indigent, needy, homeless, or transient individuals. Our downtown district is intended to encourage the creation and preservation of mixed-use development, including a wide range of housing options, and to provide for the protection and enhancement of historical cultural resources, to establish minimum requirements and responsibilities for the installation of public improvements, and to encourage desirable site design for all development occurring in the district. These are essential for diverse, dynamic, and desirable city environments. Our current growth policy indicates this area as mixed use. That is places where people can work, live, play, and learn as defined in there. It is supposed to be areas that are complementary and integrated, such as residential, office, light industrial manufacturing, retail, entertainment. This is a denser area, and mixed use areas do not use the traditional segregation of uses. This is an existing building. Changes to the site are going to be very limited. Proposed alterations at this time include bike racks along Jackson Street, lights for additional security along the entrance, which is at the corner of Jackson and 13th Street. And as you can see on this plan, they are showing cameras being located at the four corners of the building. Here on the top is showing what would be the entry for this shelter. On the bottom is the opposite side of the building, which houses our place. Adjacent across 13th Street is residential housing. Across Last Chance Gulch is the Sealy building. To the south is the Steamboat building and its associated parking. To the east is the lower density business uses of the TR district. And then both north and south along Jackson Street are residential. Here's the plat showing the location of the property. On this plat, Jackson Street is referred to as Pearl Street. Last Chance Gulch is Main Street. The conditional use permit review criteria. I apologize, but I'm going to read this verbatim. A conditional use permit may be granted by the City Commission only upon findings supported by substantial credible evidence in the record that the following standards are met. The proposed conditional use, as conditioned, will not adversely impact public health, safety, or general welfare, and the proposed conditional use, as conditioned, will not adversely impact the peaceful use of existing property or improvements in the vicinity in the zoning district in which the subject property is located. In considering whether section 11-3-4A1 and A2 standards are met, the following standards must be considered in determining the impacts of the proposed conditional use on the abutting properties in the neighborhood. The location, character, and natural features of the subject property as it currently exists, type and size of the proposed structure and improvements in the relative location on the subject property, historical uses, established use patterns, and recent changes and trends in the neighborhood, conformity of the proposed use with the neighborhood plan, if one has been adopted, current and proposed pedestrian, vehicular, and bicycle traffic, including ingress and egress, circulation, and parking, whether the use is consistent with the Helena Climate Change Action Plan, whether the proposal meets the zoning dimensional standards requirements for the zoning district without a need for variance, hours of operation, noise, glare, odor, and expressed public opinion related to the factors identified above. The above factors are weighed and evaluated depending on the circumstances of each case. Any one factor may be sufficient to find adverse impacts for the purposes of 11-3-4A1 and A2, justifying denial of the permit. The mixed use growth of downtown has led to the location of numerous social services organizations in this area. Pureview Healthcare, Aware, Helena Valley Addiction Services, Helena Job Service, and God's Love are all within walking distance of this proposed location. This meets the downtown neighborhood plan goals of increasing neighborhood services. And with that, the Emergency Housing Working Group was established to create a plan for shelter options for unhoused individuals. The existing structure will require minimal upgrades to meet building and fire department requirements. These include the addition of showers, ADA bathrooms, smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, and improved egress hardware. This will be an overnight shelter, and staff will enforce quiet hours between 4 p.m. and 9 a.m. Traffic impacts are believed to be minimal, as most of the clientele do not have vehicles. Those that do will be directed to appropriate parking locations to minimize impacts on the residential neighborhoods. The new exterior lighting improvements will be shielded to prevent light trespass, and shelter staff will designate areas outside the building for congregation and smoking during the hours of operation to limit impact. The zoning commission meeting was legally noticed in the record November 18th. This meeting had its legal notice posted December 2nd. Neighbor notices were sent to both property owners and tenants within 300 feet on Friday, November 17th. Notice signs were placed on Last Chance Gulch, Jackson Street, and East 13th Street the following Monday. At the December 6th zoning commission meeting, 28 public comments were received, 38 public comments were received. Sorry, my incorrect there. 27 in support and 11 against. As of today, we have received 53 written comments with 24 in support and 29 against. The city staff recommendation, as presented in the staff report and presented to zoning commission, was to recommend approval of a resolution granting a conditional use permit to allow an emergency shelter use in the downtown zoning district for the property legally described before, with the following conditions: that the conditional use permit only applies to the portions of the building as shown in the submitted architectural plans, that expansion of operational hours beyond 4 p.m. and 9 a.m. will require a new conditional use permit, extending shelter operations beyond October 1st and May 1st will require a new conditional use permit. No personal items other than bicycles in the provided rack will be allowed to be stored outside the structure, and all newly installed exterior lighting will be shielded and directed. At the December 6th zoning commission meeting, they moved to approve recommendation of that with the following change. To condition 3, they amended it to say extending emergency shelter operations beyond October 1st, 2023 and May 1st, 2024 will require a new conditional use permit. This time, I welcome any questions.
Thank you. Comments or questions from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, quick question for Mr. Holland.
Yeah.
So if you back up one slide. So number 3 says extending emergency shelter operations between. Okay, I think I got it. Thank you. That was the zoning commission's, one of their conditions, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments from the commission?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
maybe, would you mind explaining the addition of that condition from the zoning commission?
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. That was a response to public comment that this would grant them operation for this winter as a test to see how this impacted the surrounding neighborhoods and if there was increased issues as described in many of the public comments, or if this worked to eliminate some of that by taking people off the street, but to not give a permanent approval that would run with the property indefinitely.
Mr. Mayor?
Um,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
With that, I was curious about like the May 1st date, why that was chosen, but more so what happens on May 2nd.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I will leave that to the applicant to describe their policies and procedures. But my understanding is that this use has to stop based on that, and it cannot be picked back up until October 1st.
I'll wait to re-ask that question. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Mayor, I was wondering, are we planning to have a presentation from the applicant as part of public comment or separate?
Well, we had informed the clerk that the applicant will be given 5 minutes to make a presentation.
Okay. If possible, I have some questions, but I think there would be better after the presentation.
Okay. Any other comments? Thank you, Mr. Holland.
Thank you, Commissioners, Mayor.
The applicant?
Mr. Mayor, prior to hearing from the applicant, I do have a question for the city attorney, and I had mentioned this in an email this morning. Yesterday, we received an email, the commission did, from the applicant, and it had at the bottom of the email a question or statement of confidentiality, and I'd like to ask about this after her presentation, but it says the contents of this email and any attachments are confidential and are intended solely for addressee.
I think it's just on the email.
So what we received yesterday, we'd be able to ask of the applicant today. Okay, thank you.
Please.
Okay, good evening, Mayor Collins, commissioners. Thank you very much for taking this into consideration this evening. My name is Teresa Ortega. I'm from Good Samaritan Ministries, and I'm here to present our request for you to accept this application proposal. For the past 17 years plus, each winter, the nonprofits would get together and say, what are we going to do with those that are unsheltered this winter? And a lot of times nothing. Many times Good Samaritan would pick up the needs and provide some kind of shelter over their heads. This year, I'm glad to say that we've gotten further than that in the last 17 years with an idea and a plan to come forward. In August, city commissioners set aside funds, then requested the help of nonprofits to address the needs of those that are homeless this winter. Our community came together with a team and has been meeting since. The Emergency Housing Task Force explored multiple different sites with 468 Jackson Street as the only location that was deemed viable from the fire marshal. This location is the only option we have today, but we will always be pursuing other options as needed. No new shelter in Helena. We have had no new shelter in Helena since 1981. In 1991, God's Love added the Family Transition Center. Since 2018, the numbers of homelessness individuals has grown since the point of time, and it has increased to 93 to 164, a 57% increase in the last 6 years. I'd also like to add our street outreach staff, Mark Ney, who does an amazing job on our streets, has said he figures and counts anywhere between 40 and 50 women who are unsheltered or in unsafe housing at any time. Today's reality is that no single provider can meet the complex needs of the homeless population. We come to you with the backing of a team, the Housing Task Force, and multiple nonprofit agencies, community members, and churches to plan and address the needs for women who are homeless. We want to call that Ruth's Place. We have several high barrier programs that provide wonderful supports, but they are full and have a long waiting list. Those high barrier shelters are Friendship Center, Florence Crittenton, YWCA. They have a 2 to 6 month waiting list. This is where we feel Ruth Center will come in to be able to house or support, not house, but to shelter people until they're able to get into the program. We have strong communications with each of these programs so that there would be a warm handoff and support for transporting people over. I want to talk just a minute about low barrier shelters. Low barrier shelters encourage unhoused individuals to seek resources by eliminating obstacles to entry. People are accepted where they are, but will adhere to local laws, policies, and behavioral expectations as a shelter resident. Low barrier shelters does not mean low standards. Shelter residents will be provided access to wraparound services, Good Samaritan programs, United Way, Friendship Center, YWCA, Friendship Center, or Florence Crittenton, Helena Housing, Healthcare, Fuse, Substance Abuse Programs. Good Samaritan has referred many people to substance abuse programs and treatment. Essentially, this is a short-term answer, potential long-term solutions. Why women? Women's shelters cater to unique needs of women who need help to get up on their feet and to survive the trauma they have had to endure. Having women alone helps stop some of the triggers that they have been through in their lives, but to help them to get back on their feet. Evidence has shown that a women's shelter plays a vital role with women supporting women and referrals to women providing program agencies. These stats come from 54 articles on Public Med to show evidence. Only with the establishment of more women's shelters that receive support directly or indirectly through other organizations or individuals within the community will be able to further ensure that these women have the time and space they need to build back their lives without the fear that they will be forced back into dangerous health environments. Did I think, hold on.
It's your time.
Here's the policies. Lastly, to start with, we'd like to focus on the women's group, to start with a smaller group, a group with like needs and challenges to begin to make changes in the overall homeless problems here in Helena and the population.
Wrap it up quickly.
Okay, I'm going to go very quickly on the policies to adhere to. Neighborhood safety. Okay. Neighborhood safety, shelter residents will be observed indoors and outdoors during the hours of the evening. And every step will be made for our community safety with cameras, lights, and other operations within the community. Shelter residents will have a place where service providers can reach out to them and have a place to store their belongings so they're not on the streets. Shelter residents may actively participate in on-site and neighborhood cleanup activities. We've got that started already, by the way. Access to services, shelter residents will have access to a wide variety of helping agencies with supports from shelter staff to obtain and apply for services. For the accountability, shelter residents will agree to follow the law and the shelter policies, which will enforce equity. We are going to have plans in place, rules in place, to make things work. We're not just going to be a free-for-all. I'm going to leave this to Emily, this next step, if that's okay.
Thank you.
I know the zoning commission, I'm sorry, I'm Emily McVeigh, Executive Director of the United Way. The zoning commission asked for the 1-year limit on this conditional use permit. We are asking for it without a sunset. The modification proposed by the zoning commission is unprecedented. We need more time to make sure this is a successful program and ensuring that the work of the emergency working group is successful. We do have the support of Carroll College students to track data to make sure this is successful. We will know that this plan can go forward, whether it's in this location or another location, and including the needs of the owner of the property, looking for more time and commitment on this project. Any questions, please?
Thank you. Comments from the commission, for the applicants?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of questions. I may have more after, but just a couple of quick ones. We have received a great deal of public comment on this. So there's a couple of questions that thematically we heard a lot of. So there were some concerns from community members about what happens during the daytime. The shelter is open until 9 a.m. So between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m., where will the people who are accessing the shelter go?
So this is part of what we want to work together with our team. God's Love is going to be, they've accepted and working with us to provide breakfast, lunch, and dinner for people. So they'll be able to leave and go through that. Our place has their first group at 9:30 in the morning, and they are able to stay at our place and work with staff or work on different issues they have in support with staff. So that's an open place for them to come. People stay, the clientele will go to our place for dinner at about 4:30. We usually close at 4 o'clock. Sometimes we stay later if it's weather is too bad for them to be out and waiting outside. So there is a place for them, but at the same time, people would have the opportunity, women have the opportunity to start seeking out other supports within the community with our staff help at our place. So they may be having referrals done and moving forward.
Thank you. And just for the clarity of the public, Our Place is the separate program in the downstairs of the same building.
It's, yes, it is.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, if I might, just to follow up. The application, the actual application itself lists you, Ms. Ortega, and Jeff Busher. So could you help understand for us, the relationship on the permit? It's two agencies. Could you talk a little bit about how that would work?
Yes. So honestly, I've been in this field so very long and I've seen so many changes. It's almost impossible for one agency to do a good job to provide a service such as what we're proposing. We've come together with this team through the Housing Committee with different entities and nonprofits who have all jumped in and wanted to be part of this process of providing a shelter for women. Jeff and Emily have been very upfront in helping us get the paperwork we needed, getting information out so that we could provide the community with information about what this is about, what the women's shelter is about. So it's a team project. We cannot do this alone anymore. Good Samaritans will be providing the day-to-day services and programming, but also we're going to be working together on either fundraising or programming to get people to different sites within the community.
Any other comments from the commission? Go ahead, Commissioner.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Really appreciate the presentation. I think if it might be helpful if you could talk a little bit about the emergency housing working group that came together really in August, I would say, to map out how we would address, how the community would address emergency sheltering during the winter. Lots of meetings. I know one of the consistent things that we've seen in public comment is, I understand that there is a need for this, but not in this location. There were, lots of hours of discussion, and I wonder if you can maybe talk about what brought you to the place of this location and why places like the fairgrounds and other places in the community didn't end up being suitable or available for this type of project.
Sure. And even just taking it a step back from that, United Way has been working on the Helena Housing First project for roughly 6 years, really in depth. We work on the community health improvement plan alongside a separate team of community partners every year. And 2 years ago, housing was identified as one of the main concerns in our community. And after that, the community health improvement plan, we created the Move the Dial teams, and Jeff Busher has been the lead on those teams. We have 5 action teams. Those teams have been meeting for almost 2 years. In addition to our Helena Resource Advocates teams, our weekly case conferencing teams. So we have been meeting on housing more than once a week for over 6 years. This conversation happens all the time. We have proposed countless ideas to our community for housing our unsheltered population, from tents to Quonset huts to Conestoga wagons to using the fairgrounds to multiple buildings, and none of them have been approved. We don't own other buildings. We don't have the funding for other buildings. For whatever reason, none of them have come to fruition. When this emergency housing work group was created, people really took it seriously and said, we need an answer and we need to come up with something where there is a yes at the end of the day. And we finally came up with a yes at the end of the day. And that was the Logan, the backside of Our Place building. And this is the furthest we have ever come in this conversation in all of those meetings. And those are public meetings. Anybody's invited to attend. We are more than open to including people that are not in favor of our conversation and listening to their concerns and trying to alleviate their concerns and sharing with them the things that we know about our unsheltered neighbors and how we can best work with them. So this has been a very, very long process in the making.
Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, if I could just ask one more question of Ms. Ortega. Can you explain how your case management works with individuals that should this be approved, stay in the shelter and those who are coming to our place throughout the day?
Yes. So I want to start with our staff. Our staff are peer support who have lived experience. So they know the direction to help someone to go to get out of where they're at, being homeless, with addictions, with mental health issues. Our place is an attachment, and it's through behavioral health, which is to provide addiction services, peer support, to be able to follow through with what they need to get back on track and out of the drug and support, gain more support with mental health. So it'll come from the overnight women's shelter to opportunities at our place with the groups and with the one-on-one support with peer supports. But then also our peer supports and Good Samaritan has amazing connections with other nonprofits and service providers within the community that they were able to provide that warm handoff to people.
If I could add and just give a little kudos to Teresa's staff. They work very closely with the job service. And as a matter of fact, what we know about our the clients that we work with is many of them are employed. And so a lot of them will be going to work during the day. What we see when we run the the showers program on Tuesdays is a lot of them are employed and they just cannot make ends meet to afford housing in our community. Many of them are retired long-term residents of Helena. When we run the statistics on our unsheltered neighbors, 70% of the people that are currently unsheltered in Helena are from Montana, if not the Helena city limits or the surrounding area. They're not new to our community. They are employed here. They have resources here. They just have lost their housing. They've lost their way and they need a new path on how to get back on track.
Thank you.
Something I'd like to add on that as well. I think it's.
Ms. Ortega.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just two quick questions. Question number one, is it an accurate statement to say that currently in Helena, there is no emergency warming shelter?
Yes.
Okay. And question number two, and I believe this would be for Ms. McVeigh. Do you know the number for 2023 of people who have died while experiencing homelessness in Helena?
When we have a list right now for the longest night that will happen on Thursday at 4:30. Right now, our list is at 9. 9 people have passed away in 2023 due to being unsheltered.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, this question is for Ms. Ortega. Thank you both for being here. It's mentioned that it's a low barrier and there's no children. I know that there has been a study that has come out from the Helena School District that mentions the incredibly too high number of homeless children. Why is that? Why are they not included in being welcomed to your shelter? I was just curious.
So with the low barrier shelter, I was looking for the definition of it, but a low barrier shelter is to accept people where they're at their lifetime, at their lives. It is not to accept the behaviors like we talked about earlier. But with a low barrier shelter, you may be having someone that is coming in that's coming down off a high or alcohol, and then we can start working with them. Children can't be in that area. We cannot subject children to that, but what we can do is cross services with Good Samaritan. And if there is a family that comes in with children, Good Samaritan would take on with possible housing or not housing, hotel stay or something like that to get that family to the next step.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is for Ms. Ortega. Yesterday, you sent us an email that just mentioned that the landlord, who I later found out from a question that I asked you, was the funeral home essentially, wanted a 5-year lease on the property. Could you talk a little bit about that?
He does. Our landlord has been tremendous with us with the Our Place facility on the other side, but he does want a 5-year lease, which kind of, I think, goes into the CUP and what they recommended. So we've submitted the grant for commerce and that's a 5-year plan grant that will carry us through for that. Hopefully we get it. It's one for each county. So we're looking at that, but this is just something on the table. I wanted to bring up and be transparent. This is the things we're concerned about in moving forward.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, if I may follow up. So when do you hope to have the shelter operational?
Well, that might depend on you all.
Let's say it hypothetically.
I would say
passes.
February.
And a follow-up to that would be, do you have the staffing to support that?
That is $1 million question. And staffing is difficult, like everyone knows right now. We've managed to keep Good Sam going when it's been a hard time of staffing the store. We cannot stop and say we just can't do it. I think a benefit we have with this, I've had several people come up to me right away and say, you know, I'd like to work a night or two. I could do that to bring in extra funds, or we've had one person that is interested in working that night shift. So I think that's the idea of working nights is very appealing to some people. So we're going to put it out there. We're not going to stop. We're going to see what we do. We also have volunteers that are stepping up to the plate. And as long as we have a trained staff at the facility, we're fine with one other volunteer. So that's the way we're looking at staffing.
Mr. Mayor, one just last follow-up or last question. So relative to the low barrier nature of this shelter, you're talking that client services will be available but not required.
We can't not make anyone go to services. That's the law. We can't do that, but we can make them very, very appealing, which we have seen happen at Our Place. People that just came through to sit in Our Place are now very active in group with anywhere from 15, 18 people in a group, sometimes more.
Ms. Ortega, you said you'll be ready by February.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's the reason for the delay? Is it revamping the building? Is it?
We have to make sure there are 2 ADA bathroom stalls with showers. We tried to get around that. We can't. We have to have the showers in the facility. So that's going to be a big one. And as we all know, getting a contractor in place to get something done is very difficult right now.
Okay.
But we've had a couple of contractors volunteer to work with us on this. So hopefully that'll go through.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, a question for the applicants. Can you talk about your discharge policy a little bit?
I did. I can. I sent our manual out, and that talks a little bit about the discharge planning in there. So a discharge will either be voluntary or involuntary. An involuntary discharge has to do with someone that's not following policies, that's not working well with different people, or is just coming every day and not doing anything. And that's reasons for involuntary. It's, fighting, comments that are unaccepted. This is how we work it at Our Place. We're very on top of that kind of issues because it tears people down. We don't want to see that. So we do get firm with that. And if you don't stop, you're going to be discharged or you're going to be trespassed for a certain amount of time. We don't like to trespass or kick someone out, if you will, forever, because we think people learn with the time sat down and talked to them why this was inappropriate. And we have people coming back to us at our discharge or trespass. When can I come back? It's all the way you present things to people. So that's the involuntary. Voluntary, maybe they've self-resolved. We've worked with many individuals who self-resolve, and during the time of COVID, when we had the hotel, that was one opportunity for people to get off the streets, to take a break and decide what they want to do without being in the survival mode. And so giving options for self-survival that sometimes people don't even think of. I could call a family member, I could get a job, I could do this. That's a voluntary way out of it, but then also getting into other programs within the community is a voluntary discharge.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Ortega, any other comments from the commission? Okay. No,
You said no to me.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
If
All
you
right.
look behind you, you'll see why I'm saying no. So, we will now have public comments, but before we have public comments, I want to read a statement. In an effort to maintain decorum and in consideration for the many who may wish to speak during tonight's public hearing, individuals will be limited to a single comment period of 2 minutes per hearing. At the end of the 2 minutes, I'll ask you to wrap up your comments. We ask you to avoid redundant or uncivilized speech. The commission has been giving access to all comments received previously, and I know everybody read those comments like me. I read every comment that went through our emails. The commission has been given access to all comments received previously. Written and oral comments are weighed equally in decision makings. If you are participating online, in addition to raising your hand, you may enter your comment in the question and answer feature, and your comments will be read into the record by the clerk of the commission. Should the written comment exceed the 2 minutes allowance, your comments will be summarized as denied or approved, and the full written comment will be saved into the permanent record. Thank you for your cooperation in keeping the meeting efficient and fair to all who are participating. So at this time, we will entertain public comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and the commission. I'd first like to say confusing. I strongly oppose the sunsetting nature of the permit. It is unprecedented and seems to violate city ordinance. They deserve a permit that is in line with city ordinance. This is our solution to save lives. We don't need a 10th death. And with these 26 beds, those folks who can be shuffled around, because this will be a women's shelter, that creates 26 more slots for the most vulnerable. There are people who can survive out there, but I think we all remember last winter, no one could survive. Everyone in this community worked very hard last winter when it was, I don't even remember how cold, 20, 30 below zero. That's crazy. So this is ready to go. It's an emergency shelter and we need something this winter. We can't wait. The costs of housing are atrocious. Rentals are worse than a mortgage. And it's easy to be evicted. I'm currently on a month to month. My landlord could boot me whenever he wanted to. He won't, but where would I go? I'd go to a hotel. I can afford that. A lot of people can't. They need access to something, and there are people working hard out there who don't have access to anything. And if they lost their place because it was turned into an Airbnb or whatever, the rent was doubled, they might need somewhere just for a night even. So I would beg of you to realize these are human beings, and I hope our community can come together and take care of them. We can't leave them out in the cold for another winter. And, you know, we can't put the pressure on all of these organizations like we saw last winter when everyone came together and found solutions, but that's not a long-term solution. So I plead to your humanity, please support this emergency women's shelter.
Thank you. Before we take the second comment, I just want to find out how many of us want to give comments. Just quickly raise your hand. Oh boy. Okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have the pros give comments. If you can just line up all the people that are for this shelter, please line up and just start giving comments, and then we'll have the cons give comments after. Please start.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Jeff Busher, United Way. It has been an honor to guide this emergency shelter work group through this process. I appreciate your cooperation and the city staff. They have been remarkable. As we consider approval of this shelter tonight, this is one step in the right direction as we strive to address the issues of the unsheltered among us. Given the concerns of the neighbors of this site, I propose and I'm willing to lead and chair a team of concerned neighbors, business owners, unsheltered persons, and representatives from the city and county, because I believe this work must be done with the utmost integrity and transparency. We do not do this. If we do not do this, we feed the myth that we are throwing money away on a problem that is unsolvable. Some would use the excuse, leaning on a very wise man's comment, that the poor will always be with us. He did not mean we should not help the poor. He was simply stating a social reality. So considering oversight, considering the county contributes significant monies, roughly $50,000 a year to pay for our place. They also contribute nearly $100,000 a year for God's love. This set aside for $100,000 for this shelter. These are significant dollars. And I think along with those dollars comes oversight and supervision. And so I want to provide that. Last thing I want to mention is that the CUP really should be, instead of bucking the system, I think it should be a permanent CUP and not a temporary one. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, I'm Eric Broston. For specific reasons, I was like all over the country, and I had to do it on the low money. I'll get into that in email to you, and so you can find out a little bit more about why. But even in Washington, D.C., or like right out of New York, if you were in an area, probably almost anywhere in the country, and you needed shelter, even late at night, like say 9 o'clock at night, I showed up at a campus security just right outside in a suburb of New York, and they just sat me down, talked to me for a little while, and then threw me in the squad car and took me over to this shelter, got me something to eat, got me showered up, got me a bed to sleep in with clean sheets. I mean, all over the country is better than Helena. You can almost find emergency shelter anywhere immediately. And in Washington, D.C., I was walking through the street, and they came up to me and said, "Hey, we're going to grab you and we're going to put you in a warming Greyhound bus island. And if you don't say yes, you're going in the psych ward. So what are you going to do?" I'll get into a little more of the details in an email to you later, but I'm just saying there could be serious liability for not doing something like this. Very serious.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Kayla Morris. I am the Supervisor of Community-Based Services at St. Peter's Health. I lead the Housing is Healthcare Frequent User System Engagement, also known as FUSE initiative in our community. And I am here to express my strong support for Ruth's Place on behalf of St. Peter's Health. St. Peter's Health actively participates in multiple community initiatives addressing homelessness and leads the Local Fuse Initiative in partnership with Good Samaritan Ministries and United Way and many others. While permanent supportive housing is crucial, we urgently need an emergency low barrier shelter as new supportive housing units are developed locally. Ruth's Place will significantly reduce the number of individuals sleeping unsheltered on our streets, which will directly alleviate public health concerns such as public defecation due to lack of alternatives, minimize fire hazards, and support unsheltered citizens in their journey towards permanent, stable, and attainable supportive housing. During winter, the emergency room at St. Peter's Health observes an increase in unsheltered individuals seeking care for preventable cold weather injuries, exacerbated chronic disease, and other crises that may have been prevented with safe shelter, like Ruth's Place. The significant rise in Helena community members experiencing unsheltered homelessness strains our emergency room resources, sometimes leading to longer wait times and limited beds for our community members. Housing is a social determinant of health, and Ruth's Place will significantly address that for really vulnerable members of our community. Again, I just want to conclude that St. Peter's Health wholeheartedly supports Good Samaritan Ministries conditional use permit application, and we urge you to vote favorably for that. In addition to my statement, I've been asked to provide comment by CEO of Peerview, Justin Mergel, who's unable to make it here tonight. Would you like me to read that now or get back in line?
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So I'm going to read this word for word. So
Quickly though.
yeah, it says, members of the commission, my name is Justin Mergel, CEO of Peerview Health Center, a federally qualified health center serving over 7,000 patients in Lewis and Clark County and surrounding areas. Peerview is also a member of the Fuse Initiative and has provided support for more than 500 unsheltered individuals this year alone. We join you tonight in voicing strong support for Ruth's Place on behalf of our patients and the larger Helena community. A large part of the work we do is driven by information about a patient's living situation, employment, access to stable food, quality education, and more. These social determinants of health allow us to ensure as many parts of someone's life are supporting their mental and physical health as much as the care we provide. More than data points, these things help us focus efforts and resources on solutions that will make the most impact for people. While we know long-term supportive housing is truly the remedy here, we also understand that short-term supportive housing is key to achieving the goal. The security and respite provided by places like Ruth's Place are essential to supporting people as they seek permanent housing, stable employment, and health care, both emergent and preventative. We see the need for Ruth's Place not as a response to a growing problem, but as a commitment to investing in practical, low-risk solutions to meet the needs of our community and those living in it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Mark Ney, and I am the Street Outreach Coordinator for Good Samaritan Ministries. I work with our unsheltered population in Helena, those experiencing houselessness. I say houseless rather than homeless because this population has a home, and that home is Helena. What I have learned in my role is that we have a large unsheltered population in Helena. That number is growing, and our unsheltered population is from Helena. We are not here this evening with a fix for the greater issues affecting our community. What we are addressing is our community members' ability and right to access emergency shelter when there are a lack of available alternate options, and the ability to be safe from weather that kills. From Friday to Monday this weekend, I was referred to elderly female unhoused individuals, both over the age of 60, that had nowhere to go. I speak in support of Ruth's Place, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, my name is, for the record, Chuck Butler, and I've participated in many of, or most of all of the emergency task force meetings. I gotten to know Teresa and Mark very, very well. Have the highest regard and admiration for them. I submitted a long letter, probably take about 20 minutes to read, but thank you, Mr. Mayor. You said you read everything, so appreciate that. I would like to comment that maybe you've heard that the St. John's building is no longer available, that it's under contract with some other investors. And that was part of the discussions that the emergency task force had. And it's unfortunate that building is not available. So one of the things I'd like to suggest going forward is that maybe this commission and the county commission form a joint commission. I know it's been suggested by Commissioner Reed to study the issues of housing in this community. I've also gotten to know Jen Gursky at the YWCA pretty well in this process. As of Friday, there were 22 women, and think of this, 24 children living at the YWCA with 22 women. Anyway, I'd also like to compliment Mr. Holland and the staff, your staff, for the excellent presentation, the excellent work, research they have done on this project. Lastly, in the spirit of Thanksgiving, in the spirit of Christmas and giving, I was out shopping over the weekend, and I got to thinking a lot about our place and Ruth's place. And so I have a gift. Teresa, there are 25 more sheets and pillowcases for you to get started with. Hoping they didn't jump the gun. I'm hoping that the commission is going to approve it. So this is one. There are 25 more of these out there. And
would you wrap up, please, sir?
yes, sir, I'm done. And there are 25 more of these. Nice little cozy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Members of the commission.
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, my name is Maggie Bornstein. I work at United Way, and I do wish we could all be a little bit more like Chuck Butler sometimes. I come here to share, we hear about the longest night that is approaching in the memorial that'll be held for people who have died while experiencing homelessness here in Helena. And I think to many of us that can feel like a really abstract concept. And on December 21st, longest night, I'll be flying home for Christmas, and it will be my 6th Christmas without my sister who died while experiencing homelessness. And I have, as a result, been, spending those past 6 years doing anything and everything I can to advocate for the safety and well-being of women, particularly marginalized women. I actually met the mayor many, many years ago, the first time at an event speaking for the welfare of women. And I think that often in these conversations, I've heard many of the opponents share concerns about the safety of women, particularly young women. And I am a yogi. I think that it would make us all a little bit happier and better in our day-to-day if we all just slowed down and calmed down and reflected a little bit. But where I do yoga is actually right behind the Sealy building. And I do yoga there at 5:30 in the morning because I'm kind of crazy. And it's pitch black and I'm all alone and I walk to my car, and it's not like I wear a t-shirt that says I work with a helping agency. People treat me with respect and dignity, and I've not met people in these obscene situations that I've heard depicted. And I don't want to displace the concerns that people have, but I just felt that I needed to get up here as a young woman to really say that please do not use my experiences to displace real good efforts to further the safety of women who really truly need it. We know so many of the things that are catalysts to women's homelessness are due to a lack of safety, and this is a really great solution. So I ask the commission to support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the commission.
Good evening.
I hope I'm not being redundant, but my name is James Petrovich, and several years ago, I relocated from Texas to Helena for a position at Carroll College. While in Texas, I researched the issue of homelessness and I evaluated programs serving the unhoused. I also helped develop and implement street outreach teams and day shelter programs. So this is an issue I care a lot about. I've spent a good portion of my life studying it, published author. It's an issue that I care about, and I care about it as much as Helena as I did in Fort Worth. I understand that approving this shelter will not be an easy decision. Homelessness is negatively impacting the area already, and the people who live and work there are tired and in some cases scared. And that was hard to hear at the previous meeting, just some of the experiences of the people living and working in the area. And I feel for them. And I feel that as a community, we need to respond to their needs as well. At this moment, however, there are women in our community who need shelter. Beyond the weather, which we know kills, unhoused women experience serious victimization and exploitation on the streets. Research generally supports the idea that about 25% of women experiencing homelessness have been raped within the last year. About 60% of them have experienced some sort of violence. The women in Fort Worth, not Helena, were 6 times more likely to be raped versus a woman who had a safe place to stay. These statistics do generally hold up community to community. Couple this with the violence, abuse, and loss, which most of these women that drove most of them into homeless, and they are some of the most vulnerable in our community. Research has demonstrated that low demand shelters like the one we're discussing tonight are the best way to engage unhoused people into services, especially people who sleep outside, who often report significant histories of trauma and more often suffer from serious mental health issues. So I understand the reluctance on some people's parts to do this, but I think it is the right thing to do, and I fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners.
Good evening.
My name's Michael O'Neill. I'm the Executive Director of the Helena Housing Authority. I'm speaking in support of this proposal. I can speak to the long hours that many folks have worked on looking at options here. And this is, at a time like this, we have to work with what we have in front of us. It really is just a real basic proposal that's going to provide the most basic shelter for 24 women, make sure that they're safe and that they're warm, and have an opportunity to de-stress and perhaps plan for other opportunities like finding permanent housing, finding services or a job. It will also address many of the concerns that we've heard from neighbors in terms of if people have a place to bathe and use a bathroom and be off the street, then those concerns are addressed. Let's keep in mind, though, that the fundamental issues that driving homelessness is the housing crisis, housing emergency we're facing. And so this proposal will also provide a space for us who are working on the permanent housing solutions to have some time to bring those projects to fruition and with support of the city and county and this community. So please, I would encourage your support for this proposal. Please eliminate the 1 year condition on this that really is unprecedented and really would cause a problem for the project. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Jacob Kuntz, I'm the Executive Director of Helena Area Habitat for Humanity, in support of the CUP. I agree with everything that Michael said. The spectrum of housing is under incredible strain. Housing is like a game of musical chairs. It's a cruel game. Those who are most vulnerable get kicked out as strain is put up and down the line. Creative solutions are needed to address the issues of the citizens of Helena. And that's what this group that's come together and put together really a meaningful proposal for addressing one end of the spectrum of housing have proposed, and they deserve admiration and respect for bringing together this proposal. Good Sam stepping out on a limb to be able to serve these much needed services for these women. Helena Area Habitat for Humanity is in support of this project. Anything that can be done to alleviate the strain on any section of the spectrum of housing. The crisis of what we're seeing among the unhoused, we're only beginning to see. I think this proposal, the CUP, is only the beginning of what could become a really meaningful plan. Deserves long-term support, not just until May. It deserves a chance to get its feet underneath it and to see it come to fruition so we can come up with a real plan that's going to serve the permanent needs of this community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Madison. I live here in Helena and currently work with many people who are experiencing issues related to being unsheltered or are on the cusp of becoming unsheltered. Helena does have limited resources for people who have lost their housing or are struggling to maintain safe housing. By allowing us to have an emergency shelter like Bruce Place, we'll be able to allow 26 more women a safe space to sleep at night and the ability to begin to decompress and to focus on other issues in their lives, such as their physical, mental health, as well as permanent housing for moving forward. And so I just implore all of you to consider the reality of the harsh winters of Helena, and to consider the fact that we're all one bad act away from losing our housing, especially those of us who rent. I'm one bump in my rent away from losing housing. It's the reality of living in an area with a rising cost. And so I just ask all of you to consider how valuable your shelter is and how important it is to have a safe space at night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, Commission Board, my name is Ryan Featherston. East Helena resident, and I'm the president board of the United Way, Lewis and Clark United Way. I'm here to speak just kind of more about my people that I get to work with Emily and Jeff, and the hard work. This will be my 3rd year on the board. And it's been something that they've talked about since day one that I've walked in. And this isn't the only project they've spoke about or done. What's so awesome about these people is they have a plan, and they get a group of people together and they start figuring out what we can do. We've done so many things around this community to show the people that are unsheltered. Down at the tap house, we had photos and stories for people to see and read and hear about our people. And when I say our people, 76% of them are from Helena and Montana. Just speaking on everything and how much they work on it, our board supports everything that the United Way and our partners are doing. They continue to keep us in the loop. We also need volunteers and people all the time in all these nonprofits. So anyone here tonight's looking for some hours, we'd love to take you in your membership. It's something that we're all doing. Helena's changed in the last 5 years. I've been here since '88 when I was born, 1988, and it's completely different. And what's happening is so awesome about these guys is they're adapting with the changes. And if you don't adapt, you die. And the situation that's happening right now, we lost 8 to 9 people last year. That's way too many Montanans to be passing away. And one thing too, within a personal thing, I have a mother-in-law right now who's going through some life crisis. And the only thing that was open for her was a women's shelter in Great Falls. Great Falls has something that women can go to and Helena doesn't. I take a lot of pride in Helena and East Helena and what we do, and we lead. We are the capital city. We should be an example to all these other cities as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, members of the commission, my name is Amy Hall. I've lived in Helena since 2002. For the last 20 years, I've worked in a building in the same block with our place. I'm an attorney with Montana Legal Services Association, a nonprofit law firm that serves individuals with limited means. I park in the large open parking lot next to our place, which was on those photographs. I'm there most every weekday, sometimes Saturdays, sometimes Sundays. I'm there at all times of the day, early morning, during the day, late at night. I encounter folks who are served by our place and folks who are unsheltered almost on a daily basis. I have never felt my safety was threatened. I have never been assaulted. Montana Legal Services Association is here tonight through me because we, like all of you, care about our community of Helena. All of our community, not just those individuals who, like me, come from the privilege of a stable upbringing, a college education, access to mental health care, and housing that I can afford. Tonight, you commissioners, our elected representatives, are faced with the decision to vote yes or no for Ruth's Place. Yes or no? Let's first imagine a no decision. What does that look like for the community of Helena? At night, a no vote would mean that in downtown Helena, we'd likely still see women curled up on sidewalks, against buildings, in parking garages, in the winter. Now let's think about what it looks like if there's a yes decision tonight. The area around our place and the neighborhood where I work would look basically the same in the daytime. People coming and going from our place, from Pure View, Aware, the Man Store, Montana Legal Services, God's Love. None of that changes in the daytime, whether or not the vote is yes or no. But at night, 26 women who were blessed with a bed at Ruth's Place with a yes vote would have a safe indoor place to sleep. Think of what that means to someone, especially in the winter. Those of us who come from privilege can never fully realize what it means for a woman to have a place to sleep at night that's safe, surrounded by women only. Recently, I was part of a gathering. I'll wrap it up. I was part of a gathering of folks concerned about the increased number of Helenans facing unsheltered conditions. And at that gathering, elected officials from the city and from the county told us we can't expect the government to solve the issue of the unsheltered program. Well, now our community members, Teresa, Good Sam, the United Way, and their staffs have come to you with a proposal that makes sense. It's worth a try, and it's worth a longer use provision than just this first initial winter. So please, when you're thinking about this tonight, think about your yes or no vote and what it means for the lives of these women who currently are sleeping in the parking garages or on our sidewalks.
Good evening, mayors and commissioners. My name is Melanie Lemire, and I'm a coordinator at United Way. I'm more of the behind the scenes person, so bear with me. I wanted to share these thoughts with you. In Helena, 9 neighbors lost their lives last year due to the effects of a life in Montana without a suitable place to call home. Now consider the luxuries many of us take for granted daily. Our warm, comfortable homes with all the comforts we share with friends and family. Now consider our neighbors' reality. Most of their possessions fit into a backpack or shopping cart, spending the bulk of their times moving around, looking for a safe, warm place where they can experience a few moments of peace, shaking off the constant barrage of harassing, demeaning comments from those who do not know or understand their situation. At United Way, we work with these neighbors. We understand many of these neighbors need help. A case manager that can walk, sorry, I'm not good at talking, so that can walk with them towards permanent supportive housing services that are underfunded and struggle to keep staff. Today, we face serious systematic challenges, but provide a shelter for women is an important first step in the right direction while we address these larger issues. I'm a proud Native American Montanan where we take care of our neighbors. Supporting this proposal makes Helena a place we can call home proudly. Our actions demonstrate what it means to be the last best place. Many years ago, 4 men got a break while giving this place one last chance. I hope tonight you'll vote to give these women their best chance for a productive future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Collins, members of the City Commission. I'm Mary Ann Dunwell. I'm a state senator representing Helena and East Helena. And the 26 women who hopefully will be housed at night, I represent them too. They're my constituents as well. They're Montanans and they're your constituents as well. So I wrote you a lengthy comment, so I'm just going to keep it brief. But, you know, it strikes me, I returned recently from a trip to Austin, Texas, and went for a little walk along the Riverwalk. And I couldn't believe how many souls, people were camped along the river. And then I made my way to the Capitol building to take a look at that. And along the way downtown, people on the sidewalks, in the alleyways, everywhere. And, you know, that's happening here. Yeah, and so, you know, I understand where some of the opponents are coming from. Believe me, I do. The thing is, it's incumbent upon us as elected officials to make sure people have a place to stay, to live. Where are they going to live but on the streets? We don't have the shelter. I mean, where are they going to go to the bathroom? Where are they going to get warm in the winter, but huddled in a tent with a fire, which is a safety hazard? If we don't even have a warming shelter in Helena. So, you know, it's Christmas. Give this gift to the community. So please vote yes. And please lift the sunset, because if we're talking opening in February, provided you vote yes, and closing May 1st, I mean, that's a couple of months, and you can't get good evaluative data in that time. So Merry Christmas. Let's make this a New Year's resolution to move forward in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Collins, commissioners. My name is Chelsea Rice. I'm a citizen of the 6th Ward, and I own Montana Book Company downtown with my spouse. And we encounter and engage with the unhoused daily. We've seen the growing population on our way into work every day. We know a handful of them by name, some of which people are very scared of. But because we know these people by name and we know them as humans and we respect them in our community and as our neighbors, we believe that basically everybody should have access to shelter, especially during what are really difficult winters in Montana. And that is, all humans deserve access to shelter. All living entities deserve access to shelter, especially during these winters in this particular state. I have worked in shelters in Portland, Oregon, women's shelters for domestic violence, transitional shelters for state and federal offenders. And nobody wants to be in a shelter. Nobody wants to live in a shelter, but having access to them when you need it is imperative for people to survive. And as a child, I became unhoused due to domestic violence and slept in parks, in cars with my mom multiple times. And it is a terrifying thing and it's a precarious thing. And I believe that this is an opportunity for us to provide housing and shelter for a very small amount of people for a very short amount of time in a day. And that we are doing a noble thing by doing that. So I encourage you to support this effort. And thanks for hearing my testimony.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Sandy Dearman, and I'm the CPO at Ability Montana. I'm here today not as the CPO, but as a person that lives approximately 2 blocks away from where this Jackson Center is going to be. You're going to hear a lot about people are afraid. Well, they are. I've talked to my neighbors. I don't think it's so much that they're afraid, they're nervous. They don't know what's going to happen. But the main thing that we have all agreed on, and I'm talking about most of the people on my block, obviously I'm not going door to door, is that people deserve the right to be safe. They deserve the right to be warm. And that fear isn't something that's going to stop anyone, at least in the block that I live on, which is again 2 blocks away from, the people saying that they don't want them there. Gosh, my brain just went completely blank. I'm so sorry. I believe that this is a great thing. I ask you to raise the sunsetting. 1 year, 6 months, well, we'd actually be talking, 3 months? That doesn't give us any data whatsoever. So please lift the sunsetting. Please approve this. The people deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hearing Commission. I'm not going to waste your time. You've heard a lot of people who can say it a lot better than me. Please approve this. It's the easiest thing the 5 of you can do. In fact, it's the simplest thing the 5 of you can do because the heavy lifting is going to be done by a lot of other people who've been doing some seriously good work and continue to try to do some seriously good work. If you vote yes on this tonight, please pivot, keep working on it. Ask, what is the city going to do next? What's the city going to do to ameliorate the concerns? And work with the people who are going to speak to you in a minute about why you shouldn't do this. If you vote no tonight and you're against this project, what's your plan? What are you going to do to change the status quo? Because what you're going to hear from the no's is also that they're unhappy with the status quo. So come up with a plan. It's the right thing to do. It's the humane thing to do. And I would remove the CUP limitation. In my time when I was on the commission, I can think of only one time where we did a really odd, anomalous thing. We had an affordable housing development and the neighbors were unhappy with that. So we approved putting a locked gate to separate the apparently unaffordable housing development from the affordable housing development. It was wrong then. It's an odd piece of animosity the city tacked on, and so is limiting this proposal. Thanks, guys, and thank you for doing the right thing.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, I'm Jennifer Jeffries Thompson. Tonight I'm representing and bringing up at the end of the line the Outreach and Social Justice Committee at Plymouth Congregational Church. We have not heard from the Faith Committee community yet tonight, but I know that Plymouth is only one of many churches and faith communities that are in support of this effort. In the past year and a half, not only has Plymouth participated in the many meetings that you've heard about, but we initiated the Rough Sleepers discussion group that had 5 overwhelmingly popular meetings this fall. We distributed sleeping bags. We have a crockpot ministry. We help make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And in all our dealings with the housing situation, we have nothing but trust and respect and utmost confidence in the leadership of the staff at Good Samaritan and United Way, who bring you this unbelievable, wonderful proposal. Good luck and make the right decision. Thanks.
Thank you.
Greetings, commissioners, mayor, staff, and the community of Helena. My name is Brian Copeland. I'm a community resource specialist. For the last 40 years of my life, I've been in the trenches on the front lines in the battle on homelessness. And we have waiting lists at a lot of these for housing at a lot of these organizations. And a lot of these waiting lists keep getting longer and longer and longer all the time. 5 to 7 years for a lot of the families. And that's if you dot all your I's and cross all your T's and everything. This is a step beyond that. I mean, imagine waiting 5 to 7 years for housing and you're struggling just to make it through one night. I mean, go out in your backyard, pitch your tent, and see what it's like fighting against the elements. We have the opportunity here to move forward where we haven't done in many, many years. I attend all these housing summit meetings because I'm also the voice for a bunch of people that I advocate for on a daily basis. We need bases of operations, locations where people can go, where there's these one-stop shops to where these people can get wraparound services, and all of these agencies are working together on schedules that work. Imagine your night of sleep. How important is that for your day? I mean, if you're in a shelter and you're warm and you got to go to work the next day, because a lot of the requirements for a lot of these programs, these people have to be working. And can you imagine if you got like PTSD?
Just try to wrap up, please.
Sure. Sorry, I lost my train of thinking.
Sorry.
It's crucial that these people get a place to sleep, because if they don't, this problem is just going to escalate. It's going to get worse. You're going to have more people defecating everywhere because they got nowhere else to go. You're going to have more people getting violent because they're getting frustrated because there's no services being delivered. If something isn't done immediately, everything's just going to get worse. It's not going to get better. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any online proponents?
Mr. Mayor, I do have one hand raised and I have one written comment. Which would you like first?
Oh, the hand raised would be okay.
Okay, I have 2 hands raised. Just a reminder for the folks that are would like to provide public comment online. The mayor is taking public comment from those who are proponents. First up, I have Gina Baysdorfer for the Friendship Center.
You have the floor, Gina.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My name is Gina Baysdorfer, and I'm the Executive Director of the Friendship Center. The Friendship Center submitted a letter of support for this project, but I wanted to come and echo the comments in support of the permit in the shelter without the 1-year limit. The shelter is critical and will be life-saving for many for several reasons beyond the elements. Many tonight have spoken about the violence that has resulted in homelessness for women and the dire risk of more violence for women while unhoused. This shelter fills a critical need we have in our community. And I also echo the comments that a significant amount of work is needed in our community beyond this shelter to impact the issue long term. But for tonight, please vote yes without the 1-year restriction. Thank you.
Next online, I have Sandy Otzinger.
You have the floor, Sandy. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I would remind Sandy that she can participate with public comment by submitting something to the Q&A online. With that, Mr. Mayor, I have, and she took my advice. So from Sandy, I have, please support the CUP untethered by sunset.
Thank you. Did you say we had a written comment?
I do, Mr. Mayor. In addition, I have Katie Loveland. I have submitted my public comment through the website. I did not want to, or I did want to address Commissioner Shurtleff's comment about youth homelessness. The definition that OPI uses for student homelessness is very broad. Quote, a student is determined homeless if they lack a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. Examples of homelessness include children and youth living in shared housing due to economic hardship, loss of housing or natural disasters, motels or hotels, public or private places not designed for sleeping. The vast majority of students who meet this definition are unstably housed, but are not sleeping on the streets. Almost all of the individuals sleeping on the streets are adults. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I have no other written public comment and no other hands raised at this time.
Thank you. At this time, we will have the opponents line up, please. Please come forward, sir.
My name is Mike Nelson. I'm a resident of Helena. I had my first job 150 feet from the old bus depot building in 1963, which is what that place is. I've been a property manager for the last 25 years across the street from the proposed change. I do not like the changes I see now. Every day it gets worse, and I have been down in that neighborhood since 1963. The area has gone downhill since God's love has become overrun with demand. I describe this area as bookends that start at the Catholic Church and end at our place. The corridor is no longer safe. Most of my work that I do takes place at night. My family took 1.5 years to build and invest in our future in a building across the street. I look around this room and I do not see anyone that helped me. You have no business to diminish my dreams or the neighbors that live in this area, their dreams. Over the past 10 years, we'd have over $2,000 in damages and broken windows. Aside from that, we've had used needles, people sleeping in the hedges, discarded shopping carts filled with clothing and garbage that takes sometimes a truck to dispose of. And then there's the defecation. There's no end in sight to this. If the applicant thinks that there's an emergency, then they should close down the thrift store to save lives and run a proper shelter. If the church thinks it should act, then the basement of the cathedral has a kitchen and room to spare, and it's nice. They want to save lives, save lives. The members of the zoning board that voted on this, the hearing that was December 6th, they said that they would not be responsible for death in the streets. They need to resign. If the vote on this December 6th meeting had taken place in the state capitol, someone
should have ushered them into the hallway. The city has one obligation, and that's to the taxpayers and their well-being, and not some decision that runs on pure emotion. Some have said that this application has been fixed. Watching a zone board member nod her head up and down during the first part of the applicant's testimony in favor of this change December 6th, I do agree with it. If you look at the footage, she wasn't at 12 o'clock, she was at 3 o'clock. Nodding up and down.
Please wrap up, sir.
I would like to wrap it up. Okay. What they got from the zoning will create 28 people loitering extended timeframes every single day. I know they got them kind of planned, bouncing around, but the reality is the neighborhood is not what it should be. We've already paid our dues by having the shelter that's there, that's now God's love. And what we need is a reprieve from it. Share the wealth with someone else. The applicant, they could put all their goods and services that they sell at their secondhand store on rollers. Every night at closing, they could roll them over, take women to come in there and sleep, and then roll the stuff back. No one would even know that they were there. It's a way to share.
Would you wrap up, sir?
The only other comment I have is that they really missed the boat, not getting in with food share, because they could have had some kind of a position where they had a second story. It would allow them access, people that are minors to the Helena High School, people that are older to the College of Technology. There's a jump down the street from the bus depot that could take them anywhere they want. But somehow the planning that goes into this is based on people that only plan things.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Sam Hunthausen. I encourage you to focus your attention on the application itself and away from the generalities about homelessness that have been expressed tonight. I'd like to bring your attention to a couple particular parts of the application. It fails to show that its operation will maintain public safety as it's required to do by 11.3.4 sub 1. It shows no record of demonstrated competency in running a shelter. By the applicant's own testimony tonight, you were told that Good Samaritan could not be staffed. In an environment where there are many homeless people, this organization is struggling to run its current operations. It enforces nearly no standards of conduct. That's contrary to the oral testimony you heard tonight. I'd encourage you to go back to the application, the written application that's been presented to you. The standards of conduct are so low and so minimal that there are almost no expectations on the residents staying there. It normalizes illegal activity and illegal behavior. It fails to address or mitigate the negative externalities imposed upon the neighbors. Secondhand smoke, street camping, illegal drug use. I just ask that you don't approve this shelter, which will benefit a few at the expense of the greater good. The many people that live in the neighborhood, the many people that live in the city. And one final comment, I just encourage this commission and the City of Helena to be more engaging with the public. When you look at the public comments received, many of them seem to be even addressed to the applicant and submitted as public comment. There's a minimal standard you must comply with to notice things, and it's probably been met, but I'd encourage you to go beyond it in future dealings because I'll conclude my comments there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Meg White, and I also attended most of the emergency housing meetings since August. I also live at 1310 Orofino Gulch, just 1/8 of a mile from where the tent city was these past 7 months. My concern is that families and businesses near the proposed shelter site will be faced with many of the things that we dealt with as a family. While the news often glorified the tent city, never once were the residents of Orofino Gulch contacted to see how we were faring. It was a challenging time. Fear and anxiety for our safety were prevalent daily. Drugs and alcohol were common in the tent city and along the roadside. There were several arrests which can be verified through law enforcement. Trespassing onto private property, refuse, and a constant flow of people in and out of that area, posing safety issues of fire, accidents on a busy highway, and criminal behavior under the radar of local authorities. My concern is that the proposed emergency shelter has been haphazardly thought through without taking into account the families, business owners, and community members utilizing the downtown area, similar to the homeowners and recreationalists using the trails and living on Orofino Gulch. The applicant has been vague on how they will handle safety issues and concerns brought forth by homeowners and business owners, and that concerns me. If there are no regulations in place, my experience has been that those needs will not be attended to. When I voiced my concerns to Ms. Ortega with Good Samaritan Ministries about what was happening up Orofino Gulch this fall, I requested that she quit referring unhoused individuals to the tent city due to the negative effects on the residents there. She told me that there was nowhere else for them to go,
Please, ma'am.
and she would continue to send them. So it has been my experience that often people can become so attuned to the plight of homelessness that they're willing to overlook the concerns of the community members that are directly affected in a negative way by the solutions that they're pursuing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor and commissioners. My name is Monique Namath, and I'm just a member of the community. I also sent in a letter, so you've probably all read it. So I was trying to take some notes tonight. So first off, when originally came up with what is some requirements, I noticed one of them was downtown district to enhance historical cultures and public improvement. And I don't feel that's going to happen. I just today went by, got near God's Love, and there was 2 or 3 shopping carts and tents that do not make the appearance of a place that would be part of community. So even though this shelter may help them in the evening, it surely doesn't help them during the day, because this was at lunchtime. And so even though they may have been at lunch, at some point, all these other items were outside in front of near God's Love. I get my eyes done at Helena Vision. Just last year, I saw many people I need to say that I'm retired, over 22 years in law enforcement. I've lived in Washington, D.C., San Antonio, Dallas, lived in Helena from 2002 to 16. And 16, I moved and lived in Salem for 3 years, moved back in 19. And so I have seen homeless, I've seen areas where it's worked. But besides some of the items that were said that were necessary for this to work, the peaceful use. It is not peaceful use. My mother was scared just less than a month ago at the downtown post office. I've encountered people that have not been kind. I totally respect and love what our nonprofits do here and what this represents, but I do not feel that this should be done at this time. I do not believe a low barrier. If people have to be responsible for law, they also need to be responsible for helping them get fixed. And I have a father that was an alcoholic, and I have a sister that was a drug addict.
Would you wrap up, please?
Sure. And they chose not to get help. And I spoke to Mr. Cast, when I was hiking more than once at the camp off of Orofino Gulch. And he informed me a lot of those people live there because they can't do residential programs. And yes, there's homeless people that are homeless and work, but I don't feel that what this mainly is going to take care of these people is those people that have addictions and have needs that aren't going to get taken care of because they don't want to take part in a program.
Thank you.
Hi, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Sarah Barnes. Most of these folks are on drugs or alcohol or are severely mentally ill and barely in control of their behavior. They have to be closely monitored all night by our staff. This is the intro from a letter I received last week from God's Love. It continues on to say that many times there's only one staff on duty for a shift. This is of grave concern to me. Well, we are here tonight to review the proposal of a 26-bed women's shelter. Per the applicant, this is a pilot project. The intent is to expand from a seasonal women's shelter to a year-round non-emergency shelter, serving the larger male population as well. Tonight's vote is not just for the small temporary service, but a foot in the door to expand. Increasing services and therefore the homeless population in our downtown area specifically is a travesty. Will everyone acknowledge that safety is a concern from the proponents to commissioners and the opponents specifically firsthand? There's been no public discussion of the health and welfare of the general public, property owners, and families that are affected by this. Roof or no roof, we have to quit excusing and enabling criminal behavior. There is no excuse for loitering, littering, and vandalizing property. There is no excuse for burning businesses and breaking storefront windows, and there certainly is no excuse for sexual harassment of women and children. The high school's track team can no longer run down Last Chance because of lewd comments and actions. At what point do we say is enough? Our children, our families, and our business owners also have basic rights to safety. I speak from experience and not fear from the unknown. I do not support low barrier programs that require nothing of the recipients. There is absolutely nothing wrong with placing minimal requirements on any program that is intended to provide a hand up, not just a handout. There is absolutely nothing wrong with requiring drug testing for those seeking help from programs funded by taxpayers' dollars. We've seen the same no accountability approach fail and collapse in other areas. We need to take a different approach, and it starts here tonight with your vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Taylor White. I am an electrical apprentice that works in the homes and businesses of those who inhabit Helena. I would just like to start off with the fact that those who are in favor of opening this emergency shelter have every interest besides their compassion to propose such a plan. Such people who have proposed the plan are earning a wage and a reputation based on your ruling today. That being said, I do not condemn them for putting in the work in order to bring up solutions for the homeless. They're so very urgent to get people off of the streets due to the cold, and I am not saying this isn't a good idea, but I am saying that this plan for the emergency shelter poses a threat in increasing the density of the homelessness situation in the area of downtown. And the people who live here on their properties in their homes, they do not only deserve to be safe or feel safe, but it is their right. The business owners deserve to feel safe and operate without worrying about their customers not arriving on time or at all because of a very practical, very real threat of being confronted by people who have no regard for their actions, who have proven time again to upset, torment customers, employees of such places. Obviously, the introduction of a new shelter only promotes the congregation of those needing or wanting the support that they have to offer. And I am not saying that they are not helpful, but I am saying that with this comes confrontation, vandalism, and other inappropriate, unacceptable behavior. I'm asking you to think of the people living and working in this area. They are the ones that build our economy, relationships, and form our history. They are the taxpayers providing the money intended for this grant. Those working with United Way, Good Samaritan, other nonprofits, and even some city staff use their business days working on solutions to this problem. And I hate to be critical, but I think that it is within their capabilities of stepping back and rethinking about the location of such an emergency shelter. I can imagine that it would be incredibly difficult information to hear. They've made according plans to proceed with it. But I am asking you to please consider, because I believe it is far more important to focus on the immediate effects of the residents and business owners, because they are ultimately what keep downtown Helena
Would you wrap
a
up,
lively
please?
and fruitful place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Jim Langor. I have the downtown barber shop, 612 North Glass Chance Gulch. According to a former barber, that shop has been continuously in business since 1948. I do not believe I will find anyone to take it over. Not because there's a lack of barbers, but because safety concerns, the harassment of customers, and all the above. There is a small percentage that continually are not respectful to anyone, and they break the laws continuously. I'm happy to see law enforcement here. They've probably seen the exact same thing. What I would like is probably not going to happen. I would like women to be walking around without being harassed. I'd like the neighborhood people that have houses, I'd like their children to be able to play out in their yards. I'd like my landlord, who has been very good to me, to have another business in the space I occupy. I don't see that happening. Every spring, I see the transients migrate in. They come in with a backpack. They collect shopping carts and everything else. Some have talked to me. Some laugh and refer to themselves as transients. One has referred to himself as a bum. So I guess I can refer to them as transients and bums. It's not a good situation, and I fear it will only get worse. And thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Stacy Evangeline, and I'm a homeowner. I didn't prepare a statement. I just took some notes on stuff I've heard here tonight, so hopefully I don't come off too scattered. It's hard to stand up here and be against this. It's much easier to be for it. Nobody wants to say that there isn't a homeless problem and that we don't need solutions, but it is hard to come up here and talk. I've been quoted and misquoted in the press, and now I feel like I'm kind of the face of the NIMBYs in the neighborhood. Speaking of my neighborhood, I have talked to my neighbors. None of them are for this. All of them are against it, but they don't want to be like me, standing up here saying these things, being misquoted in the news. The criteria for approval of this included public safety and welfare of the neighborhood. And like the lady on Orofino Gulch, I feel the same way. The folks who are putting this on, they don't care about the safety of the neighborhood. And I can kind of understand where they're coming from because they have a lot of concerns with the unsheltered population they need to consider. But they're not taking us into account at all. I've also spoke to them and been told that's the way things are going to be. You're going to have to deal with it. In proposing this shelter, we just heard them say that children can't be allowed there because it's not safe for children. But then it's safe for the children who live in my neighborhood. Someone else mentioned our children playing in our yards. So I bought a home with a yard and now my kids can't play in that yard anymore because this shelter's popped up. Also, speaking of safety, some people spoke out and said they do feel safe walking around. I have a son, he's 18 years old. He's like a 6 foot tall man. He doesn't feel safe. He used to go to the PAL school and he'd have to walk from my house by our place. And he had cat calling and people yelling at him to the point where he was walking down a block to go down to his school. People don't feel safe. People do feel harassed. And I would like to know, if I do have damage to my property, is United Way going to step up and pay for that? Are they going to repair broken windows? Can I call them to come clean human excrement off my yard? Because I haven't heard anything like that. All I've heard from them is these vague, we'll take care of it, with no actual solutions or no actual consideration to those of us who are living in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey guys, Buck Ray, I'm the owner of the Steamboat Block. I'm going to keep it nice and short. I think everybody's pretty much said what needs to be said, but I just want to reiterate a few things. There seems like there is no plan. There's no plan for, this is their clientele that they are bringing into this neighborhood. They're all over my building, all over my parking lot, and there's no plan to help me out. You know, Amy seems to be pretty darn safe in the Steamboat Block. Well, maybe that's because I'm the face of it. I know all those people by name, and I've confronted a whole bunch of them. So This is not the right area. There's not enough parking. It's too dense down there. It's just going to cause more problems. And they can't staff this. They know they can't staff this. This is just going to be a slow nightmare, and we're all going to watch it. So I would say, please don't vote for it. But if you do, make it a yearly thing so we can address this, because this is going to be a train wreck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Derek Miller. I own DM6 Studio down on Helena Avenue, 631 Helena Avenue. Just dealt with a lot of it. I'm not going to regurgitate what everybody else has said, because that's exactly what I was going to say. The only thing I can really say is prepare the homeless for the road ahead, not the road for the homeless. Thank you for your time. I hope you don't vote for this, and enjoy your evening. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mayor, Mandy, these are normally my people. I'm Robin Burke. I'm the business owner of Harmony Salon at 639 Helena Avenue, directly across the street from the proposed homeless. I don't want to cry tonight, because I am normally standing on the side of let's help people. I 100% agree we need something. We need something. I'm also going to say I am a recovering addict alcoholic of almost 25 years. And if it wasn't for the grace of God, I wouldn't be standing here. If it wasn't the fact that I was able to live in my mom and dad's basement with rules, I had to be clean and sober. I had to participate in my recovery. I had to get myself there, and I had to do the things to get where I am today. My salon is part of my story. It is part of my success. And one more time, I'm standing back saying drugs and alcohol are going to interfere in my future, in my dreams, and I don't have control this time. So I'm standing here and I'm asking you to think of downtown Helena and all of the small business owners. We're just people going to our what we love to do on a daily basis, and we just want a little place safe to do that. And I'm okay with, I've worked downtown for 6 years. So I know what it looks like. I knew what it looked like when I walked in there, but it's getting worse and worse and worse. But yet I want to find something to keep all of the people that don't have homes safe. I want to find a solution to give them that hand up that they need. And this is an entire community problem. It should not just be downtown. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Helena Commissioners, Mayor Wilmot Collins. My name is Carly Mosey. I am a resident 400 feet from the proposed emergency shelter. My home was photographed in the presentation this evening. My husband and I purchased our home behind the main store in 2016. I have been employed at a cornerstone business on Last Chance Gulch for the last 8 years. I feel this goes without saying, but must emphasize this is not a conversation of need for shelter services. This is a conversation about location and use of funds. My perspective comes from years and seasons of observation and coexistence with this downtown community, with consideration of the unsheltered as my neighbors. Drug use, addiction, and mental health crises are the main sources of contention negotiated on a daily basis. My workplace serves as one of the few public restrooms in our downtown area, requiring additional surveillance and communication between businesses to ensure the safety of our customers. We oversee the use of the space and have addressed drug use, sleeping in the bathroom stalls, and bathing, exposing nudity. Within the past month, an unsheltered person was arrested for performing sex acts in exchange for drugs in Cartwright Park, only steps from my home. I witnessed human defecation in public as I was chaperoned home from work last week, and that mess is still there. I've witnessed an unsheltered person scream at and strike the downtown tour train full of people this summer. I've witnessed an individual use injectable drugs and pass out on Last Chance Gulch. I have called in unsheltered persons, obviously under the influence of very strong drugs, adjacent to a well-attended youth soccer tournament in Centennial Park. It's a part of my life to reroute, tidy up, and coexist with the unsheltered neighbors that have been present long before my arrival. I try to ignore behaviors that do not pose threats, be friendly in passing, and always call for help when needed. I choose to live here and can continue tolerating what has been here before, but I cannot continue to agree this trajectory and expansion is healthy or safe for this neighborhood and does not reflect a source of intense community pride. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Carl Cossett. I live on Warren Street. I want to follow up with what the past lady said. When I lived in Denver, we lived in Park Hill, which was a first integrated neighborhood in Denver. And it was not very far from Stapleton Airport. And what happened was that Stapleton began to need to fly bigger jets in. And when they flew bigger jets, they flew right over that neighborhood of Park Hill, City Park, and over through there to the point where you couldn't be outside. The noise was so bad you could wave to the pilot as he flew over your house. Denver's solution to that airport was to take that airport and move it out where people weren't already living. In other words, the people that were living there did not have to subject themselves to more noise from an airport, putting more flights in the air. And that's exactly what it feels like we're doing with downtown. From Warren Street, I have a lot of people that visit from all over Montana, from all of the United States. Having seen where we've lived in Minneapolis, Denver, New Orleans, different places, they say, Carl, why did you choose here? They're only saying that this last year. As we go through tunnels, as we go down by God's love, as we walk to our eye appointments, we all know that downtown is increasing with homelessness. It's an issue that we need to have a master plan to deal with. I'm all in favor. I've worked 40 years as a psychiatric social worker. It's really hard for me to be standing up here saying that I don't want this in a neighborhood that's already existing, that's already filled with services, and then to add more. I do not believe in low barrier shelters. They start with the premise that the person is not motivated to change. Instead of let's work with higher level of places, some of these people that are breaking the law need to be incarcerated. They need to have a limit set. They need to have accountability. Without that, they're not going to change. I can go through the list, but most of these things have already been said. I do agree we need shelter, but not to continue to add to the decay of downtown Denver, or downtown Denver, to turn it into Helena. You're promoting people coming to downtown. Is this what you want to see? Is more and more and more services? People will not go down there. You're defeating your purpose. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any opponents online?
Mr. Mayor, I have no hands raised and no written public comment online at this time.
Thank you. Linda, you won. You won. So at this time, we will, commissioners?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I'm wondering if I could ask a question of Chief Petty. I believe he's here, but okay, sorry.
You're hiding outside.
Thank you,
bet.
Mr. Mayor, Chief. So I'm wondering, I think common theme we're hearing, and we heard in the written public comment that we've gotten as well, is safety. And I'm wondering, can you maybe discuss, one, where we are right now in terms of being able to provide adequate safety in the neighborhood, given the status quo? And two, this is a short-term emergency shelter that's proposed. But over the next few months, how do you see this playing out and improving or lessening safety in the area? That might be a hard question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mayor, Commissioner Dean, that's not an easy question. We will strive to provide safety to all. When we are called to it, we will go to it. You will see an officer there. Big thing we see with some of our staffing levels that we experience is it's cliche, see something, say something, please call. The only way we're going to know is if we're told about it. It helps tremendously that we are downtown and our offices. So we have officers that are coming by quite frequently, especially in these areas of downtown. For me, presence is huge. If I could, you would have 2 officers walking up and down the streets at all times, throughout the night, throughout the day. The call load that we experience does not allow me to do that. However, we would like to get to that point. We can't be everywhere, but we will, if emergent, if someone does get something stolen or a non-emergent call, we will get there when we can, but an emergent call, we will get there immediately and make sure that everyone's safe. And I honestly wish we could provide more officers, especially in the downtown area, but this unsheltered issue is all over Helena. The complaints I receive in my office is not just downtown, it is everywhere. So we're the Helena Police Department, not the downtown police department, and we need to try to be everywhere. So it's important, and we provide services to everyone that we can. Probably did not answer your question, so.
No, thank you. And then, Mr. Mayor, I was wondering if I could follow up with Mr. Busher on a comment that he made during his public comment.
Mayor, Commissioner Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Busher. I wonder, can you maybe talk about, you mentioned a willingness to put together ongoing discussions with neighbors. I think that this is, I think we would probably hear similar concerns regardless of location. Even when we've had other discussions of potential sites, neighbors are concerned frequently. So I'm wondering, can you talk a little bit about what you would propose to address some of those neighbors' concerns and find, solutions to remedy any of those situations?
Yes. Let me begin by one example I'll share. Just Thursday, I was at our place talking to a handful of unsheltered folks, and they came up with a solution. We were talking about things like freedom and perception of our unsheltered neighbors, and they said, you know what we should do? We should clean up the neighborhood. We should go out and clean up the streets. And it just so happened, I had the equipment ready for them, and we are ready to mobilize them to go out and clean up the streets as they're spending their time at our place. That's one example that spurred me to the suggestion I made tonight. As folks were sharing opposition and proponents, I was kind of interviewing folks who might be on that team, because what I would like to do is have a handful of people if we get into operation. I want neighbors, I want business leaders in the area. I want folks who are directly affected by this population to have a voice, an ongoing voice, so that we're not spending these kinds of evenings together, that this team works together to find solutions as a community. It's a community development model that's very obvious. You get the right people to the table and you find solutions.
Okay, thank you. And then, Mr. Mayor, I just have one final question.
Got a lot of people talking.
My last one, and it's for Mr. Burton. So in August, we essentially launched this emergency housing working group. And I think we're in a difficult position because the city does not have anything to do necessarily. We don't receive funding. We don't have directives from within MCA when it comes to public health. I would say that homelessness is a public health issue. The vast majority of people who are experiencing it struggle with mental wellness, frequently addiction or substance abuse issues, and the full continuum of things that happen following that. So we stepped in terms of a place where we could be, but I guess, can you maybe talk about where you envision the city can continue to be a partner in this conversation and in finding solutions? Because the next 3 months, say that, I mean, whether this passes or fails tonight, we clearly have an issue here in Helena. But the city is also not the only entity in the room.
Correct. Mayor Collins, Commissioner Dean, I think, and of course, these challenges are real. And when you look at how government's organized, you know, you've got the federal and state government, and they provide human services through the Department of Public Health, et cetera, et cetera. County is, as a subdivision of the state, also provide funding for these types of services. Cities don't have any agency that actually provides service. But we do have a significant role, I believe, in our strategic partnerships and the experts that do provide the service. And obviously the chief has spoken. So we do have a role, even though it's not as structured as the counties and the state and the federal government. So I think that the commission has done a lot of work relative to the housing task force, the housing trust fund, setting aside some dollars through the ARPA general fund savings to potentially partner with nonprofits who have the expertise and the ability to enhance service. So that's really, you know, some months ago, the commission asked if we would convene all of the nonprofit experts and see if there was any way that we could come up with some way to improve upon the situation for people who were unsheltered. And I think that process, and I know that these folks have been meeting on a regular basis since then, part of that process is what's before you this evening, where we feel as a city that, yeah, one of our major roles is to be able to be a strategic partner with those who actually provide the service.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other? Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not precisely sure who this question is for. With regard to accountability, there was discussion about the condition from the zoning commission about 1 year. There have been discussions about not having that. So I'm wondering what accountability options there are in a conditional use permit that allow for a more structured review of, you know, how things are going. And I don't know if that's a condition that can be put into a permit discussion, or if it's a matter of, you know, if there's a receipt of public funding, there might be accountability mechanisms. But in the interest of, I'm thinking of your words, Manager Burton, what is the problem we're trying to solve? And subsequently, what are the problems that could be created by the solution? So thinking about ways we can thoughtfully consider a solution and anticipate ways to check in on it. So with regard to accountability, I think, Manager Burton, I'll ask you, what are the options within the conditional use permitting process for accountability? And if there are none there, I will figure out who to ask next. Thank you.
Mayor Collins, and Commissioner Reed, if you don't mind, I'd like to call Director Brink up, who oversees the process, and I think you'll have a better response from the expert.
So I was prepared.
Buck stops with
Mayor and Commission, there is no point of accountability after the approval, other than if it's discontinued with certain guidelines. It has to be resumed according to set standards, or if it's revoked, if the conditional use permit has been granted and is not in compliance with the requirements of the permit that you have issued, either unconditionally or conditionally. So if those standards are met, then we would revoke it, and then it would go back through the process. But other than that, that would be it, unless you conditioned it with some re-review, which is definitely within your purview.
Okay. All right. Manager Burton, what Commissioner Dean said about, I think she was asking the police chief about what they could do. And I heard him. But if this were to pass tonight, I want to implore you, I want to prevail upon you to see about that increased patrol. Has to happen. And to Mr. Bushner, you're talking about, I apologize for butchering your name, but you're talking about the people at our place talking about going out to clean. When is that happening? You have the tools.
As we talked about it, it was their idea.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not an employee at a place. And, but our good friend Mark Ney is here. There's other staff there. They have the tools. And, in fact, part of me wanted to go to my friend's barber shop and start there, but, it will be happening this week. Okay. In terms of getting our neighbors out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Any final comments from the commissioners?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I do have comments that I would like to reserve based on whatever motion comes before us, if that's okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'm wondering, question, I guess, for maybe the city manager, city attorney, and interested in hearing feedback from the commission. I wonder, is it possible to add a condition of establishing some sort of ongoing committee meeting, maybe quarterly or something, with neighbors and businesses in the area, with the applicants who are going to be putting this together, for an opportunity to gather continual feedback and then potential for, remedying concerns that come up.
Mayor, Commissioner Dean, the conditional approval authority in the ordinance is pretty broad. It includes very specific things like restrictions on signs and lighting. But there's also one that talks about any other conditions necessary to mitigate the identified adverse impacts. So your authority for mitigating conditions is pretty broad. One thing I would just suggest that when you're thinking about those mitigating conditions is that the violation of which could be a revocation potential. And so if one of your conditions is to require people to get together over which you have no control, and neither does the city, and neither do the applicants, it may be a difficult condition to comply with. And so I would just ask that you look at that perspective as well.
You want to use your microphone, please?
I would love to use my microphone. Is it possible to have the presentation from Planner Holland, the conditions that were recommended by the zoning commission? Like magic. Thank you.
Who did you think? You should be thanking Danae. Okay, well, at this time, if we don't have any,
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for the applicant, if possible. With regards to your shelter, what are the services that you'll provide on site at Ruth's Place for these women?
So we're going to provide a safe place to be, a safe, clean sleeping area. We'll provide referrals to other agencies and to walk them through those referrals. Obviously, we'll be talking to the clientele in the evening. That's going to be a very quiet time and a time that's low key that people will be able to talk because the day's gone. The hustle and bustle of being out on the streets is gone. We're going to be able to refer them to our place for the day program, the drop-in center, to provide services for what groups they may need to be involved with, which direction they want to go for their lives at that period, which is something we do every day at our place. So it's minimal, but it's more of a referral to get them to the next step in their lives.
okay, at this time, go to a motion. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I would be pleased to make the motion. I just have to find it. Just a moment. Page one, sorry, it's a large packet. Almost there. We will have commission discussion after the motions, correct?
You may.
Okay. Page one. I'm almost there. Apologies. Mr. Mayor, I move to consider a resolution granting a conditional use permit to allow an emergency shelter use in the downtown zoning district for property legally described as the northeasterly half of lots 14 and 19 and all of lots 15, 16, 17, and 18 in block 13 of the Chessman and Davis Central Addition to the City of Helena, Lewis and Clark County, Montana, and the northeasterly 62nd and a half feet of land formerly designated and used as a public alley running in a northeasterly and southwesterly direction across the northeasterly half of lots 14 and 19 and all of lots 15, 16, 17, and 18 in block 13 of the Chessman and Davis Central Addition to the City of Helena, Lewis and Clark County, Montana. If approved, the recommended conditions are: this conditional use permit only applies to the portion of the building as shown in the submitted architectural plans. Extended emergency shelter hours of operation beyond 4 p.m. to 9 a.m. will require a new conditional use permit. Extending emergency shelter operations beyond October 1st and May 1st will require a new conditional use permit application. No personal items of shelter clientele other than bicycles stored in provided bicycle racks are to be stored outside of the emergency shelter structure. All personal items must be stored within designated areas within the shelter building. All newly installed exterior lighting shall be shielded and directed to minimize light trespass onto adjacent properties. And I'd like to add a condition if I might. Do I do that now, Attorney Doctor?
Yes, you would.
Thank you. I would add condition 6 that biannual review of the use of the facility be held at the commission level with public participation. Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know Commissioner Logan has comments. I will just say that this is a hard conversation. This is an uncomfortable topic. We have received a lot of public comment. We have also reviewed the public comment received during the zoning commission meeting. I have read it all, I have heard it all, and I have listened. And I think this is a hard decision in any community at any time. And yet I will say, having been here since 2013 and having myself run a shelter in this community, I think it's important to recognize that we're having it. We are having this discussion. We are at a moment to make a decision about our community and how we are going to address our unsheltered population. And for that, I am grateful that we are having this discussion in our community tonight. I have made the motion. I support this project. I think looking at the conditions, looking at the requirements, I think it meets the requirements. I think it meets a very clear need in our community. And I think that knowing that we have lost 9 members of our community this year to homelessness, while it may be an emotional thing, it is a reality that I feel as though we would be remiss if we did not acknowledge that we have an opportunity to prevent a 10th. And with that, I shall stop. Thank you.
Please go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I will be opposing this conditional use permit for a variety of reasons. I think initially, or probably as importantly as anything, is that I don't believe that it meets. Staff presented a conditional use permit may be granted by the City Commission only upon a finding supported by substantial credible evidence in the record that the following standards are met. 1, the proposed conditional use as conditioned will not adversely impact public health, safety, or general welfare. And 2, the proposed conditional use will not adversely impact or impair the peaceful use of existing property or improvements in the vicinity and the zoning district in which the subject property is located. Our community, and Commissioner Reed, I really appreciate your comments. This is a very difficult conversation, and there are no easy answers. Our community has in recent months had many discussions about the issue of homelessness that have led us to this decision point tonight. Unfortunately, it's my feeling that much has been left out of those discussions, and their focus has been narrow. In my mind, it is time to have a far more holistic addressing of a very complex set of problems. Very little has been said up to this point. I've listened to all the emergency housing working group meetings, listened to the applicant's presentation, public testimony. Little has been said about how the underlying causes of homelessness, which are predominantly mental illness and addiction, will be handled. This application is for a low barrier shelter, which has no requirement for intervention, treatment, and recovery of those very serious conditions, and will, as one of our constituents said earlier this summer in a very eloquent email, it will allow people to persist in a state of rock bottom. And she concluded after sharing her personal anecdote by saying, enabling homelessness did not improve my cousin's life. It didn't save it either. The applicant submitted this request on November 10th, which is a little over a month ago. While the City of Helena did the legal minimum in public notification, most of the burden of informing the public was left to the applicants and other nonprofits. This has been one of the most important topics ever tackled in Helena, and certainly in my tenure as city commissioner. And I think we could have done a far better job of vetting this with Helenans. We owe it to them to allow them to be far more involved than they've had opportunity. In the emergency housing working group meetings, staff have mentioned that this application will be fast-tracked. In addition to the problem that causes for public involvement, it is clear that much, and we heard this tonight, that much is still in the planning stages.
Of particular concern is the very draft nature of the shelter policies. Whether or not the applicant has adequate staffing, how neighborhood concerns are to be addressed, and just the general operation of the facility are all works in progress. In my mind, these should be firmly in place prior to the approval of a CUP. Over the course of years, the City Commission has had serious feedback from the public, asking us why we continue to allow the impacts to public health and safety caused by homelessness. In emails received and in public comments tonight, we've heard numerous examples of the urban blight, decay, and crime, and how it continues to get worse. We owe it to the public to seriously address these concerns. I don't pretend to have the answers, but at this point, we're not even talking about these issues. As an elected body, we hear a lot from the public, both citizens and businesses, who have these serious concerns. And so far, we've mostly ignored them. And I believe we have every bit as much responsibility to address those concerns, but they never come up in public discussion. And it seems in community discussions that have happened, other potentials have been ignored. Salvation Army, for example, has direct experience in sheltering and case management and could bring some serious national resources to our community. I spoke with some staff at NAMI, Montana recently, and I was told of a bill that Governor Gianforte signed, HB 872, which added $300 million to support group homes and other behavioral health solutions that could benefit the homeless and help lift them permanently out of their condition. But we're not talking about either of those or other alternatives that could be brought to bear. And I think it's clear that if approved, this will lead to the further expansion of this shelter and will continue into the foreseeable future. The applicant has stated that their organization is working on a $750,000 application from State Commerce for its expansion. And we were informed Sunday by the applicant that the building owner is asking for a 5-year lease with Good Samaritan Ministries. As many have said, I believe this will have a significant impact on the economic health and vitality to downtown and to adjacent residential neighborhoods. Many business owners and residential neighbors have adequately expressed those tonight and in other ways. And we've offered them little hope that those conditions will change for them. I think the reality is that their situation will get worse. I think we can and we must do better. We must have a broader, more holistic community conversation to come up with effective and sustainable solutions to the homeless plight here in Helena. And I believe this application is rushed. It has not given the public as a whole much time to be active participants, does not address the underlying causes of homelessness, and will leave the neighborhood, the downtown, and our community as a whole with a lot of serious and unresolved problems. And so, Mr. Mayor, I will be opposing this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This has been stated, obviously this continues to be a difficult conversation. But I will say one thing that I have heard consistently throughout the written public comment and the verbal comment public tonight and in conversations that I've had out and about in normal life in the community, that the vast majority of comment, both for and against, describe their desire for a safe community where Helena citizens, both housed and unhoused, can access the services and businesses and housing options and amenities that improve their quality of life. This is not a perfect solution. I don't think that probably the applicants would call it a perfect solution. If you listen to any of the emergency housing working group conversations, you'd hear that as well. But we are in a time and place where there has really been a perfect storm. During the pandemic, the numbers of folks losing their housing skyrocketed. Our the rate of those who have become homeless has become greater than we've ever seen in this community. Rent is higher than ever. Our community is growing at a pace we've never seen. And then on top of that, we've lost a number of mental health facilities in the area. And that continues to put a strain on providers in our community who are dealing with the same kind of staffing shortages and increased costs to operate. So what I will say is I think that we all want a holistic solution. I think that was the goal of all of these conversations. We're, as a community, trying to look, and particularly as a city, we are trying to look at housing as a continuum. That's why we've invested heavily in the the housing trust fund at the city level. We've approved more units than in city history, almost 1,600 in the last 2 years. This is another piece of that housing continuum that is really hard to get our hands around. And it's because it's hard. And there are difficult conversations. And, you know, I live near the railroad tracks, and there's a few people that walk by my house every morning on their way, I'm assuming probably down to God's Love or our place. I know a few of them sleep by the railroad tracks every night. And I understand that, you know, frequently people do feel unsafe, but I think to myself every morning as I'm sitting drinking my warm coffee, you know, that could be a friend, that could be a person I go to church with, you know, anyone that you've ever worked with. It doesn't mean that everyone shouldn't have the opportunity to live safely in their home, but I also think that it's easy to write people off when they've fallen on hard times. And I hope that this will be a step in the right direction. I know the emergency housing group reviewed literally dozens and dozens of locations. It's not an ideal location, but it also is the only one that we have available right now that can house folks during the winter. And I hope that we get to a place where maybe we will have a philanthropy that says, you know what, we're going to help you build a multi-million-dollar facility where we can provide healthcare and housing and wraparound services to move people into transitional and permanent housing. But we haven't had that in this community. And so everyone's doing the best they can. I would echo the mayor's comments that I think that we will do our best at the city to redouble our efforts to ensure that there is a law enforcement presence to ensure the safety of the community, and that neighbors know that they can reach out to the nonprofit partners and address some of the concerns and work through how to remedy those. And then my final point is, you know, I think that there are other ways that we can help be supportive too in eliminating blight and improving the neighborhood through our TIF funds. That is the purpose of a TIF district. Downtown is a TIF district. And so I think that it might be an opportunity for us to think about how we can creatively use some of those dollars to address the issues of the neighbors and neighborhood businesses to continue to improve that area. The tax increment has grown significantly, which tells me that the property values downtown are going up, and the TIF is doing what it was designed to do. And I think that might be an opportunity for the city to engage more directly in addressing some of the concerns when it comes to the aesthetics and safety and cleanliness of the neighborhood. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'm gonna turn my microphone on. It's been said that this is community discussion, and here we are. Looking at it from multiple angles, but it's nothing new. I joined the city commission in 2022 and watched in December the temperatures drop and the influx of questions. What are we going to do? There are people that don't have a place to go. And at that moment, or at that time, numerous nonprofits came together, whether it was United Way, Good Sam's, our friends at St. Peter's Health, and others came together, and they formed Move the Dial discussions. I participated in some of those meetings to hear some ideas and to hear some of the plans and the excitement of, hey, we're looking at this spot, and only to hear the next week it was a different spot because that other spot fell through. They don't own buildings. They don't have the opportunity to, these nonprofits don't have money readily available in buildings to put these unsheltered, unhoused individuals. We also convened the emergency housing working group, and I can hear some frustration as well, of that there are some folks on one side that say, are you doing anything? And we're not aware of these meetings, and we're not aware of these plans, so we feel frustrated on one side or the other. And I think, that's something that we've talked about in our strategic meetings, to be more communicative, be more transparent and more open with folks, instead of just doing the bare minimum. And I think that's something we can improve on it as a city. This proposal is temporary. For what it says on the piece of paper, it's till May. It's to get 26 women off of the streets and into a place where they can rest, they can collect themselves and get the services to get back out on their feet. It's 26 people off the streets that will have a bathroom instead of somebody's sidewalk or the front of their business. They'll have showers, and they'll have services and support. And it's being led by some of our most respected and most trusted nonprofits like Good Samaritans and United Way. We have a housing crisis, and we're all aware of this. We've seen rent go up. We heard it from some folks that testified tonight. We saw our prices go up. We've seen our property taxes go up. As one of our leading experts in housing in Helena has said, we don't need just one type of housing. We need all types of housing to get us through this, whether it's Section 8, whether it's this emergency housing, whether it's middle income housing or nicer housing. We need it all, because what it will do is build another type of housing. Those folks will move into that housing, opening up more housing for more people. We need housing of all kinds. About 2 weeks ago, 2 weekends ago, we had a knock at our door about midnight. My wife and I were watching the end of a football game, and there was somebody at the door, and my wife thought it was her youngest son coming home from watching the game at his dad's house. I looked, and it almost looked like him, but it wasn't. And I started yelling through the door. I'm like, I can't hear you. What can I help you with? And my wife says, that's just my son. Just let him in. And we turned the lights on, and it wasn't. It was a homeless individual. Raised his hands. I'm just looking for a telephone. I need some help. And he was in tears. His eyes were as big as saucers. He admitted he had been drinking. He admitted that he had smoked something and that he didn't have any place to go. God's love wouldn't let him in because it was after their curfew. He had no place to go, and he showed up on our doorstep. He had 2 jobs. And he said, all I want to do is I just want to change my clothes, my underwear, and my socks and take a shower. I'm freezing. Can I come inside? We stood outside with him, got him a blanket. We asked him where could he go. He had 2 places he could go, so we got him an Uber out there into the valley to somebody's house that he knew. Every day I've looked in the police reports for stories about this young person. I fear that if we don't do anything, that this won't be the last time that someone will show up on somebody's doorstep in the middle of the night. So if we can help just 26 people, 26 women get off the street, I think that's something that we could do if we want to call ourselves a community. And so it could be any one of us, medical bills, missed rent, anything like that. So what is the alternative? It was asked tonight too. What could we do that would be different? And I don't view this as a permanent solution. I view this as a stopgap to just get us through the coldest time of year to help 26 individuals through the coldest time of year. And so we have to ask ourselves, what do we have? What's the alternative? And that concludes my statements. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I've heard nobody here should get me wrong when I say I understand what's going on. I do. And the city is also not only governed by ordinances and regulations, but we are also governed by federal laws. I listen to some people saying, why are there homeless on the streets and their luggage is this place and that place? We can't, some parts of federal law states, we can't do anything. If you move them, you must have a place for them, as per the law. I hear, and I'll be honest with you, doing nothing is a no-go for me, because homelessness is a significant issue that affects the well-being of individuals and families, of our community members. By supporting the shelter, it helps answers and it helps solve some of those problems I heard here today. When people talk about defecating on their property, it's because there isn't a place for people to go. Let's say, I think someone said, let's look at the yes and no. Let's say this doesn't pass. Has it solved the problem? If this doesn't pass, everything that were mentioned in opposing this shelter still exists. People will still look for a place to go shower. People will still look in the darkness to use the bathroom and pee around and all of that. So those problems still exist. But if we, as a community, can say, I have this place open and you may use it to shower. You may use it to use the restroom. That, and also when we talk about safety, when I heard talking about cameras coming to the building and lights going on the building, that also create a sense of safety. So doing nothing does not help anybody. It doesn't. And I can't do nothing. But I understand the problems. And I'm willing to take a step further by not just doing nothing. I'm going to be working and I'm going to be prevailing upon the city manager for us to do more, not just leaving it as is. Without access to temporary shelter, individuals experiencing homelessness may be forced to sleep in public places. Those are the places we're talking about. We want people to move, to be removed from. But they will be sleeping in those public places, increasing their risk to exposure to extreme weather condition, crimes. The shelter would be able to mitigate some of those risks. I've heard people talk about people going to the ER, they are frequent flyers because they go there. Some of them go there just for warming. Some of them go right in the little place there to sit down and wait to warm up. Supporting a temporary emergency homeless shelter demonstrates our commitment to compassion and empathy for the most vulnerable members of our community, our female population. I believe it also showcases leadership, addressing social issues and fostering a community that value inclusivity and support for all our residents. Doing nothing means the problem continues. Everything everybody said today continues. But we can take people off the streets and have them use the restroom, have them take a shower. I'm going to be supporting this. Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Dean.
Aye.
Commissioner Logan.
Nay.
Commissioner Reed.
Aye.
Commissioner Shertliff.
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 4-1.
Thank you. Mr. Burden, is this something we can put on the back burner? I am beat.
Real quick.
Okay. I got a headache. What? The Eagles. Seahawks won. 2017. What? I don't want to listen to Ryan right now. I ain't kidding, yeah.
Does anyone ever want to?
Okay. Consider extending duration, recreation of the landfill monitoring and maintenance district. Director Leland, the abridged version.
Thank you, Mayor Commission. This will be very quick. Centennial Park is the city's old landfill. It was closed in 2000, and with that requires the City of Helena to continue to collect, monitor, and treat methane gas and groundwater. And in 2010, the state legislature passed a law that we have to review every district that was created under MCA 711 1008, and we have to do it within 13 years. 13 years is up, And so we went out for the recreation, doing mailings, and we received 298 protests out of the 623 that we had returned, meaning we had 325 for, with the weighted protests to be 2.85, which is less than the 10% that is required for us to go out to referendum. With that, I just want to thank everyone that helped out with this. This was truly a team effort, with Jay Garson doing the information outreach, Ed Coleman helping out with that, Leah Anderson, Miranda Griffith, Danae, Alex in the clerk's office, the city attorneys doing the resolution, Director Danielson and Amy Hall and Kim Cross gathering all the information, analyzing the information, and answering questions. So I just have to thank them because they did all the work to be able to get this this assessment passed and get everything out there. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Commissioners, any questions?
Mr. Mayor, no questions, just a comment. I'll keep it very quick. I think you all know kind of where I'm at on this. I've commented on a couple of these special districts before. I will be opposing the recreation of this district, not because there is not value in what is accomplished, but by how it's funded. That is, assessments are charged to each property in the city. And my understanding of an assessment, it is a charge that is for a specific benefit that each property gets out of the district. And if I'll just take my house, for example, there is no specific benefit to the landfill monitoring district. So my argument would be that it's a tax, but I understand that's going nowhere tonight. I would, however, urge you to think about something. If this is your position relative to special districts and assessments, we're looking at going to the community for a fire department levy, for example. If you created a fire service district that charged assessments to each property in town, then you're able to get charges, revenue from all properties in the city, as this district does. But in this case, it would be for fire protection services. Might be a game changer for you to think about. Anyway, those are my comments. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, just very briefly, I wonder if the city attorney could explain why state law sees this as an appropriate use of an assessment and why it is not a tax.
Mayor, Commissioner Dean, I will make it very short. Mayor Collins, the statute for the landfill monitoring district that supports the creation of it and the recreation of it specifically allows for this district and for the use of funds as assessed as proposed here by the city to fund purposes like the landfill monitoring district. And it was created under that statute. So the legislature has allowed for it. There was a challenge to a creation of a district in the city of Helena, much like this one, and it was supported through a case that hasn't been challenged by the Montana Supreme Court, but it's currently the law in Montana. And so that's the authority under which we propose it, and we would like you to pass it. Thank you.
With that, I'm happy to make a motion, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, please.
Okay, I will move to approve a resolution for the recreation of the landfill monitoring and maintenance district.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion? Do we have anybody from the public wishes to address this topic? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Dean.
Aye.
Commissioner Logan.
Hey.
Commissioner Reed.
Aye.
Commissioner Shertliff.
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1.
At this time, is there anyone from the public wishes to address the commission? Madam Clerk, do we have any online?
Mr. Mayor, I have no hands raised and no written public comment online.
This meeting is adjourned.